This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man?
All right. I gotta pause this. There we go. Get some feedback on my other. I got like 3 screens in here that y'all can't even see. All right. But hold on, get my light together. I get to turn it off. All right. That's a little bit better right there. I don't know. I had hours to get ready, but I didn't. There we go. Cool. What up? So listen, it's your boy Minister Information M.O.I. I'm streaming over on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. My TikTok fans are tapped in. They're watching live. They're listening live. This is one of those experimental moments. I'm gonna attempt to hit everybody. What up, man? It's your boy M.O.I. Another installation. We're gonna vibe about today on some good information. I have a special guest gonna be joining me a little bit later. He's gonna tap in. Of course, you know how we do, man. Get your pen and your paper. Take notes. Don't believe a word I say. I'm not here to convince or persuade anybody. This is just information. Go do your own research. Then it becomes something you know, not something you heard. All right. So I want to kick everything off by, of course, keeping the protocol. Jumping over to the comment section. Now, see, my TikTok people don't see the people tapping in over here on YouTube. So I'm gonna try to do both. I'm gonna try to shout out my TikTok people and the people on my live too. So multifaceted today. We're gonna make it happen, people. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna get it in though. Boom, 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 boom. Here we go. Bruce Lee, I was checking in. What's up, Bruce Lee? What's up? What's it, my boy? Let me get some jams in the background while we doing this though, because we got this license-free music. If you got license-free music, man, send me some of that license-free music over here to the to my email. My email's right below. If you want to, MOI podcast at gmail.com. Tap in with me. All right. Bruce Lee in the building. And these are like the first responders always, all time. True King in the building. What's going on? Peace, disciples. What's up, my disciples? And my master students in the building. Solo 5K always in the building. A-Ron always in the building. Impress me. What's going on? Abundance. My boy D Nice. I got your email, D Nice. I sent your email back, bro. I emailed you back. I need to get your size and a good address. Just give me that information. I'm gonna email you one of these limited edition hoodies that I'm working on. A lot that's still a work in progress. But nevertheless, the fucking hoodies is up and it's stuck. Mystic Philly, what's going on? What's happening? What's going on? Mr. Good Burger Peace saying peace back. The L's in the bays, the wheels in the ways. Islam saying Islam back to you. B, we in here. Oh, we in here. Let me go to my TikTok people real quick and wave at them. Saying hi to Squeeze, peace and love. Somebody shouted me out earlier on TikTok. I forgot who it was over here. I seen my name, somebody mentioned. Squeeze, what's up? Peace and love over here on TikTok. Make sure y'all share this, man. Make sure y'all share this. I'm streaming everywhere. I'm all over the place. So today, we got a dope, I think it's a dope topic, a dope subject matter. I don't want my headphones on. Check. Can y'all hear me? Okay. I don't even want to use the headphones, but I guess I got to use them now. Anyway, dope subject matter today, man. We're dealing with eugenics. Have anybody ever heard about eugenics, or anybody familiar with the term eugenics? If you are familiar with the term eugenics, give me a quick thumbs up in the comments. If you're familiar with the term eugenics, talking about eugenics today. And if I can get my there we go. Get my thing to work right here. Who all heard of eugenics? Drop some in the comments if you heard of eugenics. If you're familiar with the term eugenics. If you're even familiar with the term eugenics. I want to pull up a photograph. Now, we're going to talk about a couple different things, but Skynet acting crazy. Blow up my screen right quick. In case y'all didn't know, I'm working off a Mac Apple computer, and they can be a little controversial, these old Macs. So have you heard of eugenics? Drop a comment real quick if you heard of eugenics. So cool. Everybody pretty much heard of eugenics, right? So I want to take a different approach today dealing with eugenics. Well, not so much of a different approach, but a more thorough explanation of this thing they call eugenics. And upon my research, I found some interesting stuff, man. It's a topic that I've talked on before. But like I said, I always go back to the drawing board and did more research. And just to find a couple of so-called Negro co-conspirators, man, or our people who were a part of the NAACP movement that was pushing this agenda. And we find this thing prominent in our communities even today. I think when we take a look at eugenics, it's just based on the word, you can already decipher what it's dealing with. Genocide comes to mind when I see that term. Genes, as in genopool, Genesis is in there from the beginning. And you see what name is up there. I don't repeat that name out loud. But when we think about ethnic unaliving, one group of people seem to come to mind, and that's dealing with the Germans of the early 40s, late 30s, as some people, historians. But I say that these dramatic German individuals got the blueprint earlier on. And today I'm going to attempt to talk about who they got the blueprint from. Because, like the idea of exterminating people long been at play with Europeans. And I mean, all of them. Germans, they were just the last ones to do it effectively at mass dosage publicly. Let me say that. But Spain, conquistadors, British, Portuguese, Dutch, you're talking about mass unaliving. That's exactly what happened over to the ancient ones, our people, our forefathers and foremothers, whether it was out of the African diaspora or out of the Native American diaspora. Eradicating and unaliving mass groups of people has been the plight, the go-to, the alma mater of these European jokers, man. And what I found out today, upon doing my research, They've been doing it for a while. They've been doing it for a while. And what really got my attention was the psychosis behind it all. Oh, the good brother in the building. Hold on here. Good brother Bones, what's going on, bro? You right on time. I ain't even got started. You right on time, bro. I was just giving a little light intro.
Just greetings. Hope everyone is having a very entertaining day.
Islam, for sure. So today I got a PowerPoint together. I worked hours on this PowerPoint. I still didn't really get all the information I want to get in there, but it's a good bit of information. We're dealing with eugenics. Are you familiar with that subject of eugenics?
Yes, I am. You're dealing with Mr. Sir Francis
Galton.
Yes.
yeah. We're gonna call out a lot of people, though. I mean, I got a couple of people in the PowerPoint mentioned, people I didn't even mention in the PowerPoint. I got some key players over in Germany who were intricate to some of these plights and mishaps and unaliving of indigenous people. So as we go to the PowerPoint, bro, at any point, feel free to add value to it. Emphasize.
You talk about the land formerly known as Prussia that we call Germany now, where we got our educational system from.
Okay, so you put me on something right now. You put me on something. I do know that it was a person of color who gave Germans their actual language. I can't call his name right now. Where their written language, formal language, not how to talk. But yeah, that Prussia Empire, Khazar.
Yeah, very deep.
Athanaskans and Khazars, and then their brethrens over in Spain, as well, the Safavids, without mentioning the juicy.
Yeah, all Germans. Germans.
For sure. So we're gonna take a quick gander down memory lane, because I don't want to start off everything so sad. So get your pens and your papers out. Today we're gonna be dealing with the timeline of 1889 to about 1927. That's 1889 to 1927 gonna be our timeline today. It'll be our frame of reference. That's what I'm gonna frame this whole entire lecture over today, is that time frame, that timeline. Okay, the late 1800s to the early 1900s. That'll be the 19th century going into the 20th century. There was a lot going on in America, North America at that time. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you. That's right. Pen and paper game, check in. Over on TikTok watching, TikTok lit too. On TikTok, I always tell people to take notes. Grab a pen and your paper, take notes. Don't believe a word I say. This is just information, okay? I'm not here to convince or persuade anybody. This is not up for debate. Go do your own research. This is much like how my good brother Dan Calloway said, just to make you think. This is just thinking points. And I got the good brother Bones on here to keep me honest and to add value. You know what I'm saying? So let's tap in. All right. So the 1920s, for most so-called Black folks, this is what it looked like for a lot of us. Something called the Harlem Renaissance. Brother Bones, are you familiar with the Harlem Renaissance? And that was actually a good look for Black folks. In what's called the Roaring 20s also.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of speakeasies, prohibition on alcohol sales. Man, so much happened. You have great entertainers like Josephine Baker coming out of that era, along with many others, but she's one of the ones that definitely stick out to me. And I think the European rendition of this was something called the movie. What was the movie? The Great Gatsby. Of course, they tried to one up what we got going on. It said during the 1920s and 30s, Harlem was a haven, a place of self-discovery, cultural wellness, and political activism for African Americans. It nourished an artistic flowering of unpredicted richness It was literature, painting, and music. It was movies, poetry, and jazz. So that is known as as a Renaissance. A Renaissance. You know, Europe had their Renaissance going on, and look at the time. It's 1920. Supposed slavery just had ended in 65. That means people who came out of the slave 65, they were still alive in 1920. They were still around. Empress just put some up here to the interesting too. 1909. 1909, California state. We're going to cover sterilization also, because the sterilization and the eugenics and Planned Parenthood are all encompassing to the same idea. So Harlem Renaissance, 1920s. What else was happening in 1920s or come to 1920s? Third Great Awakening. There was a huge religious movement in North America. It's called the Third Great Awakening. It's something that I mention quite often. 1855 to 1930, and I ping on this time period because it's coming off the heels of the Second Great Awakening. And the First Great Awakening was actually the Pilgrims and the Puritans and the Calvinists and the Quakers and so on and so forth. The Second Great Awakening was multiple expansion. You target people, your Protestant movements of America start coming out of there. And it's important because these religious movements are just as important as the political movement. So it was the religious, political, social. Those three things: political, social, religious movements. Let's go through this real quick. Again, brother, you want to ask something? I just jump right in, bro. The Third Great Awakening refers to a historical period purposed by William G. Longland that was marked by religious activism in American history and spanned to the late 1850s to the early 20th century. It influenced. That's the Protestant domination, the second coming of Christ. This was really big. Everybody was on the second coming of Christ. This is when it really starts to take hold. It was affiliated with the social gospel movement, which applied to Christianity, to social issues. I told you social, and I'm first time reading through this, by the way. Applied Christians to social issues and gained force from the awakening, as did the worldwide missionary movement. New grouping emerged, such as the Holiness Movement, Nazarene, the Pentecostal movement. Jehovah's Witness came out of the Third Great Awakening. The spiritualism, theosophy, family. What is this right here? I never heard this right here. This is something that's a little bit off center for me. Now I want to know what it is. Okay, yeah. The cult, the rise of the cult, and yeah. So again, this is the 1920s. It's giving you a wide scope of who was there. The Harlem Renaissance happening. So-called Negroes just came out of chattel slavery. The new era saw adaptation of number of morals, such as the cause of abolition of slavery and prohibition, no drinking. The focus of the awakening. Let's look at some people that came out of the Third Great Awakening real quick before we move into our actual lecture. Father Divine. This is Father Divine. Father Divine came out of the Third Great Awakening. I'm talking about his predecessors and his successors as well. This is Father Divine. This is out of the Third Great Awakening. And again, you'll see mostly all the so-called Black people, so-called Negroes, dressed to the nines, they call it, dressed to the gills. Okay, nobody was busting slack, pants sagging, wearing bonnets. We look good. We look damn good. We look sharp. There was a lot at stake in the 1920s to prove ourselves amongst the population of so-called white people. There's a lot at stake that was going around. A lot of propaganda we're going to see here in a minute, dealing with the laziness and the idleness of so-called Black people, that caused the world to condemn us as barbaric, lazy, lethargic, all those connotations. But this is Father Divine. Look at some of his numbers real quick. This is before Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is before Noble Drew Ali. This is before all those movements you know about. Father Divine, also known as Reverend M.J. Divine, is an American spiritual leader from about 1907 to his death in 65. His full self-given name was Reverend Major Jealous Divine, and he also was known as the Messenger. He was known as the Messenger. Father Divine was known as the first messenger. He founded the International Pace Mission Movement, formed its doctrine to oversee and growth from small, predominantly black congregation to a multiracial international church. Many consider him to be a cult leader. Told you he was considered to be a cult leader. Someone want to find for y'all real quick. FBI file. Remember now, this is on the heels of Hoover saying we must stop the rise of the next black messiah. And there were multitude of black messiahs coming, messengers. I don't mean the Messiah, just black men with messages to their people in the era coming off the heels of supposed chattel slavery. Father Divine was one of those men. Federal Bureau Investigation file records his name as George Baker, alias God. In 1936, Eliza Mayfield claimed to be Father Divine Mother. She stated that his real name was Frederick Edwards from Hendersonville, North Carolina. Keep that in mind, North Carolina. And he abandoned his wife and 5 children, but Mayfield offered no proof and claimed to not remember his father's name. Father Divine replied that God has no mother. Wow, he disowned his own mom. That's crazy. Father Divine's childhood remained a continuous point. Some, especially other researchers, suppose that he was born in the Deep South, most likely Georgia, and the son of a sharecropper. That's interesting because we're going to get Elijah Poole Bay coming out of Georgia too, who was also a sharecropper. He's unlike Elijah Muhammad is going to come out of the Deep South in this time frame a little bit later as well. As a son of a sharecropper, newer researchers by Jill Watts based census data find evidence for a George Baker Jr. of an appropriate age, born in African-American enclave in Rockville, Maryland, called Monkey Run. If this theory is correct, his mother was a former slave named Nancy Baker who died in 1897. Wow. So that's Father Divine. Go check him out. This is the peak of the Roaring 20s. Another person that's interesting too during that time frame, late 1800s, early 1900s, was Sweet Daddy Grace. This is Sweet Daddy Grace. This is the Third Great Awakening. Is crazy. If you guys are ever curious about the time period, like what time periods to study, man, the 20s, man.
Yeah, this is the birth of what you had today, or the rise of the so-called black preachers.
Yep. And it gives you, well, let's get into it real quick. Let's just read it. I don't want to give it away. Let's read it real quick. Well, you also keep in mind earlier on in the colonies, also as early as the 1700s, you had individuals like Crispus Attucks. You know who Crispus Attucks is, right? He was a philanthropist, abolitionist, or a civil rights activist, even 1700s. Right after him, in the late 1700s, you had people like Prince Hall, who was a Methodist preacher. Most black preachers were Methodists. And the beginnings, and there's reasons behind that we'll get into a little later date, but for all purposes, they were all Methodists. Here he is, better known as Charles Manuel Sweet Daddy Grace, or Daddy Grace, was the founder of the first bishop and prominently African-American denomination, the United House of Prayer for All People. He was the contemporary and religious leaders such as Father Divine, just saw him already, Noble Drew Ali, Ernest Holmes, and many of his followers who claim miraculous acts of faith healing while attending service, and others saw his ministry as a sign from God. He was the immediate return of Jesus Christ. Now, we know he's not Jesus Christ. We know that the Pope is Jesus Christ, right? The Pope already claimed that spot. So there's two individuals, Sweet Daddy Grace, Father Divine, 1920s. Harlem Renaissance is popping. The Negro population is supposedly doing okay. And many other things of great that's worth mentioning. But this thing about eugenics, this eugenics thing comes up around this same time frame. And I'm like, what the hell is eugenics? Now, we should be familiar with eugenics with things like the Trail of Tears, which was a mass extermination and ethnic cleansing of the southeast region of the Americas from the indigenous population. Like we're kind of familiar with what happened with the Trail of Tears, but this eugenics, this ethnic cleansing got real serious in the early 1920s, late 1800s actually, and it was primarily focused on so-called Black people or people of color. Let me say that, people of color. That's what I thought. I did more research and found out like they didn't want any undesirable looking people. And a lot of those undesirable people came over on Ellis Island in the early 1900s, who were like vagabonds and just dirty people. It was just dirty people. And the United States realized they had made a huge mistake by inviting those people over to America, because there's like a call to action put out, a publication. It says, send us your sick, send us your poor, send us your blah, 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 blah. Because they had realized at the latter part of the late 1800s, Black people were doing a lot of humping around with each other. So the population of color perceivably outnumbered the population of Europeans in North America. That's historically accurate. In a haste, a couple things happened. The white aristocratic society, aristocrats, were a little bit nervous that, as Francis Cress Welsing so well put it, it was going to be a genetic annihilation. And scientists began to believe in theories of superiority and inferiority. But it was all based on one guy, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin perpetuated the idea of selected species would dominate. So there was a superior genetic species and there was an inferior genetic species. And they sought out to make YT people appear to be the most dominant genetic race of people on Earth. And the idea of race wasn't even on the table yet. There was no idea of race yet. You don't get an idea of race until you deal with one Blumenbacher. You have to forgive me. I misspell his name all the time. I think his name is Johann Blumenbacher, I think. There you go. I screwed his name up. But this guy creates the idea of race, not race quantum, as in blood-related race. He based his argument off something called phenotypical. So he said, just because you look like a certain race, you're that race phenotypically, based on your phenotype.
Yeah, because before this time, race only meant relation, family, kinship. This is at the time when they're changing the definitions.
That's facts. That's facts. Hold on. Hey, how you take it off the headphone? How you just like talk straight through the computer? I don't want headphones on. Do I go through give me a second, y'all. Do I go through StreamYard and
no, pull your the Elgato wave up.
Okay, hold on. Because there's a lot going on right now.
Let's see.
Pull up what now? Inside the studio? On the computer.
Not on the computer.
Don't worry about it, man. That's too much.
Downloads.
It's okay. It's too much. It's too much.
Okay.
I just go right here. Give me a second, y'all. Let me
take the head.
Let me undo my self check. All right.
Use the mic still.
Yeah, the mic's still on.
Is
the mic on the computer?
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
All right. Get my sound, but I can't hear myself out here though.
You move to the.
Like I need to hear myself out here. It's all the way up.
Go back to the
On here?
Yeah.
Get my audio right. Give me a second, y'all.
Okay. Everything looks good. Default.
Deep.
Mic is still on here. Video's on.
It's fine.
It's fire. You good.
I just need to hear myself on the
When
computer.
you go to the Mac speakers, it should have kicked back on.
All right. Don't worry about it. I'm at built-in speakers. Let's see. Check. There we go. All right, I got it. Thank you. All right. Get the headphones off so everybody. My ears are muffled real bad. All right. So this is Johann Blumenbacher. About that. And as I was saying, he was responsible for coining the term Caucasian. This is the guy. Let's read about him real quick. Some notes on him real quick before we jump into our actual lecture. My bad, TikTok. Like, fix the damn screen. Johann Blumenbacher was a German. And listen, just like Bro had said a second ago about these Germans. Notice everybody I mention by name is going to have some type of association with German scientists or Nazi Germany or German, some type of like, I don't know, Brother Bones, we're like the Germans just revered scientists.
No, what you'll find out in Prussia is the home of the PhDs. At this time, anybody in America at this time that's sitting in office got their degree from Prussia. This is where they got the educational system, everything that you see in America that they bought over here and rebuilt came from Germany. Back then it was called Prussia. And they used it to build a military. And that military later on became the Nazis. America used it to condition people to be better workers, slaves.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You just taught me some teaching. Okay. But notice how everybody I mentioned is going to be an affiliate of a German scholar, some type of like the German connection is crazy. I'm like, what's going on in Germany? But you just educated me what was going on in Germany. So, Dor L said America inspired. Right. Absolutely. I'm glad y'all on game with this. Johann Blumenbacher was a German physician, naturalist, psychologist, anthropologist, and he is considered to be one of the main founders of zoology and anthropology as a comparative scientific discipline. So right there, you have to also consider a guy by the name of Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus is actually the father of taxonomy, not your taxes. Taxonomy is a classification of species. So collectively, you start to see these YT pseudo-scientists, because they're definitely pseudo-scientists. And I'm gonna give you about 7 to 8 pseudo-scientists, YT people who create this notion of inferiority and superiority, which is a complex. It's not an actual thing. Nobody's superior to anybody. That's why, it kind of bothers people say YT supremacy. By acknowledging YT supremacy, you by default acknowledge Black inferiority. Say it again. If you acknowledge YT supremacy, by default, you're automatically acknowledging Black inferiority.
Why you think they taught you white supremacy? That's why you was taught white supremacy.
I.e., important case when you in school or shul, which is Hebrew for hell, when you in shul for those 12 years, everything you learn is of YT dominance. They discovered this, they did this, they came here, and they're never talked about in a way that's negative. You never see any, even when it's a negative thing, like Columbus, because Indigenous Day is coming up next month, right? Even with people like Columbus, they make him seem like a hero. Like there's always this white T hero complex. Thor, Superman, Batman. Like we don't have any Black heroes. Like everything they do is for like bro said, it's for the YT superiority situation. Everybody's superior than you people because we receive negative marks, and we call ourselves a negative mark by allocating ourselves to being called Black, which is even worse. Because I told you at the beginning of this lecture, it's social political. Social political. Those are the two houses that so-called Black people are kept out of, even by the Black liberals and the aristocrat Black boule, who are the gatekeepers. They keep us out of the social, economical remedies. So we think everything's just black and white. Oh, don't white people, no white people don't like us. White people, we learn to mimic that narrative. And I'm here to show you, they've been studying us for a long time. Genetic domination. And when they found out they could not genetically dominate us, they began to just go on a propaganda campaign and propaganda slander, in the words of Trump, fake news about our people. Let's move on real quick to Mr. Johann. So right here, he was one of the first explorers to study the human being as an aspect of natural history. His teaching in a comparative anatomy was applied to his classification of human races. Here we go. This is where you get your races from. What's your race? Race was never a thing in the early 1700s. You either belonged to the crown or royalty, or you were of royal bloodline, or you know, what's your shield? Are you a Rothschild, or you a House of Castile, or you House of Burge? Like, what's your pedigree? You were either a noble, squire, esquire. There was titles of nobility bestowed upon you that has been recently, over the past 385 years, removed. Your titles of nobility attaches you to the human family. It also attaches you to the vast estate that we call North America, North, Central, South, the Americas. It attaches you to your vast estate, but you've been usurped from your vast estate, and you wear the labels. You wear your labels of Negro, Black, colored, African American, etc. Those are all labels given to you by slaveholders in 1779. And you wear them as labels. Then you talk about surname. You wear somebody else's surname as your last name. So you have a double dilemma of who you are. He was one of the first explorers to study human beings aspect of natural history. His teaching and comparative anatomy were applied to classifications of human race, of which he claimed there are 5: Caucasian, Mongoloid, Malin, Ethiopian, and American. He was a member of modern historian called whatever it is of history. So as a discipline, as a historian, a group of historians associated with a particular style of historiographical location, university, blah, 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 18th century. He was the one that gave you Caucasian. He was the one that came up with the phenotypical association of the wide nose, thick lip adage. He even explained the classifications he came up with too. Right? Let's take a look at him real quick. And hopefully this sets up the diagnosis. This is the diagnosis for the PowerPoint. Blumenbach explored the bioversity of human mainly by comparing skull anatomy and skin color. One more time for y'all in the back. Blumenbach explored the biodiversity of humans mainly by comparing skulls, anatomy, and skin color. So he compared the skulls. Now, as far as I know, I don't deal with anthropology. I don't deal with skeletons. As far as I know, all skulls.
Craniology. Yeah, craniology is pseudoscience.
Right. All the shit was pseudoscience. Once I got looking at it.
Yeah. You cannot get a piece of bone and tell somebody what a skin color was from a piece of bone fragment. It's scientifically impossible. It was all created in, like, again, it was all created back in Prussia, and they changed the name, but I'm gonna keep calling them Prussia because of their history and what they did.
Wow.
This is their system. Again, once you realize what Charles Darwin's actual name of his book was, it lets you know what they were really doing. All they were doing was they were seeing themselves. Hello?
I'm here, bro. Go ahead.
Oh, like Charles Darwin, on the origin of species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favorite races in the struggle for life. That's the actual name of the book.
Yeah, and I actually got a copy of that along with a couple other books. There was he inspired so many people, bro, to go in that direction of that nonsense, that pseudo-science nonsense, man. It's ridiculous, bro.
But the one connection you'll find is they all trace back to Prussia. They all went back there. That's where they went. All of them went to school.
Yep. You ain't lying. And that's the one thing that I found so fun. I said, why everybody from damn Germany? And you just told me, but I'm like, why everybody from Germany? And it was crazy because like the individuals in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they began to set the rhythm for the Eugenics Project in America. While America was physically doing it, they was watching us do it. So it was like a huge petri dish of genetic annihilation across the globe, from Americans all the way over there. But they were only exterminating people of color, and then this is well after the Inquisition. This is like the second Inquisition. If you let me tell it.
Yeah, it gets very deep, very deep. That's where Horace Mann comes in.
Who was that?
Horace Mann. They call him the father of American education.
Okay, I gotta look him up. Remind me, put him, because I got Horace Greeley, but man, I didn't get him. I didn't see him.
Yeah, he was what's interesting about him, he was the state representative of Massachusetts, and he was the first person to sit on the board. He created the school boards, the whole system. He went over there to Prussia, learned it, brought it back over here, and adopted it, and the states picked it up. Backed up by Rockefeller, Carnegie. Well, you'll see where all of them tie in this story.
Yeah. Carnegie played a huge role in a couple of different things, man. Blumenbacher explored the biodiversity of human skin, blah, blah, blah. His work includes descriptions of 6 human cranial skulls. So this is his work based on skulls. Now, I don't claim to be a scientist, but I don't know how you can get all this shit from somebody's skull. I mean, skulls are pretty much, a skull is a skull. You know what I'm saying? But this is YT pseudo-science. This is what he came up with. Hold on, my phone stand is tripping. There we go. Sorry about TikTok. 6 human cranials published, original Facetious Decremius Cromulus. I slaughtered that, but this was the founding work for other scientists in the field. I told you, now these other YT boys gonna get on this same ideology, and they're gonna pump it hard. 5-part system, 1795, to describe what called the genus of human. Basically, this is the genome pool of humanity. Based on his work, this is what he came up with right here. In his view, humans could be divided in various. Only in his later work, he adopted the term races as his first race. So there was no race classification. They create something called race classification. Nobody knew they were black, or that's why the term black and white comes a little bit later. Although the term white was established early on in the 1790s at the first census.
As a status, but not as a race.
Thank you. As a status. He established 5-part naming system in 1795. Ironically, 1790 was the first U.S. census. Ironically, right? 1795 to describe what he called generous humanist, whatever that is, origin species, not the origin species, but the 5 humankind, but one species, 5 races. In his view, humans could be divided in a variety, but he was aware that clear separation was difficult. Blumenbach's classification of a single human species into 5 varieties, later called races. So these were the 5 species, not races, like race classification. There were no race classification in this time period. That's the point. But this is what he came up with. The Caucasian or white race. Blumenbach was first to use this term for Europeans, and he had also included Middle Eastern and South Asian in the same category. He was the first to use this term. Nobody was calling themselves Caucasians or YT. It was only for status purposes. It was established in 1790. 1790 is about 85 years before the colonies really got their foot in the mud going in colonial Virginia and other places, all right? Those people they were from Europe. They made no quarrel about it. They knew they were European. They knew where they from. They knew their lineage, everything. They were not calling themselves Americans or white at that time. The Mongolian of the yellow race, including the East Asians, the Malayan of the brown race, the Ethiopian or the black race, the American or the red race. This is where your creons come from. Your idea of people being creons came from one Johann Blumenbach. I wanted to definitely share that with y'all and show y'all that as we go forward in today's presentation. So
before you go a little forward, if I can add on, again, this is coming out of Prussia and the educational system that they use to teach everybody the same thing, to create a better soldier and a better working class.
I want to look that up now because you said it. Now I want to find it. You said Prussia, right? Where was Prussia?
Yeah, Prussia. Prussia is Germany now.
Prussia was a historically region central and eastern Europe that was located along the southeastern coast of the Baltic Sea and extended inland from Moravia. The region now is part of modern-day Germany, Poland, and Russia. Wow. Prussia.
Why do you think after the war, so many Germans, so-called Nazis that America hated so much, was able to come over here and build NASA and all the other science programs? Because this is where it came from originally.
That's fact. It was mind blowing to find out when they supposedly unalived Hitler that Russia took half of the scientists and we took the half of the scientists. Evidently, Russia took the smart ones because they got Sputnik up and running first before we got our shit off the ground. But nevertheless, the development of the NASA program was hugely contributed to Russia scientists, German scientists, German scientists, along with the atom bomb and many other things they were already working on. We can go down a rabbit hole about Hitler another day, but we know that they had advanced technology. This is how advanced it was over in Germany. And this is the 1940s, right? The Wright brothers just got off the ground, literally, a couple of years back. Now, we have propeller planes. That's the red-tailed Tuskegee Airmen propeller planes. German had jets. That's a big deal, family, to have jets in the 1940s. We won't perfect our jet situation to the 70s. And then a little bit later, after the U.S. Air Corps separation, formed the Air Force, because the Air Force was part of the U.S. Army. Didn't know that. So these guys had jets already. And we have propeller planes. They also had stealth, what do you call them? ET crafts, UFOs.
That's where the whole thing came from, with their experiments on flight.
Yep. I'm not sure how true this is, but sources that I dealt with before said they had help from the Greys, and part of the Greys' deal with the German party was they had to eradicate or exterminate a certain bloodline to restore the original bloodline, which we'll talk about a little bit later, which they believe that the Alpines, the Nordics, were like the perfect bloodline, and they looked like Thor. Okay, y'all see how perfect Thor's cheekbones and chin and hair, and that's the race that they were trying to get back to, but that was part of the deal. Now, Hitler himself looked nothing like that, so that's part of the deal that he had with the Greys, supposedly in exchange for advancing their technology in the 40s. So that's just what I heard. There's a black and white. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, and just to respond to Elway's comment that was in the chat, yes, you have a Prussia in Pennsylvania. You also have Germantown there because that's where they settled when they came to the Americas.
Yep, they did. Absolutely. Absolutely. Chat on fire over here. I ain't even see the chat. Chat is on fire over here. The chat over here on TikTok on fire too. What's up, y'all? Peace and love. Yeah. All right. So again, I just want to do all that stuff, man, in preparation for today's topic, of which I have a PowerPoint I'm going to share with you guys. But before I do that, I want to share a quick video in hopes that YouTube won't flag me for it. I'll just let a little bit play. But this is a very interesting document. It's called the Eugenics Crusade. It's a full documentary. It's like a 2-hour documentary on YouTube. I encourage you guys, after watching this, go check it out. And then there's another one. I'll put this link on my YouTube page in the chat so you guys can go directly to it. But there's a couple of documentaries out there. And this one was telling the disadvantages and advantages when it comes to, I would say, Europeans coming over to America, and the problem that Europeans caused upon their arrival as immigrants. The European immigrants were actually the first people that they experimented this eugenics project on, and something called positive eugenics, though. It wasn't called the negative eugenics, comes along a bit later, and we'll talk about that too. But let's check this out real quick if I can get it to play. Where's it at? Oh, it's over here. My bad, y'all. It's over here. Got like 3 laptops going.
By mating organisms with unusual characteristics, a tailless Manx cat or a rooster with a black comb, and then studying their offspring generation after generation, Davenport hoped to unlock the mystery of evolution.
Davenport wasn't yet thinking much about humans. He was just absorbing all these different theories of heredity and trying to figure out which ones applied when and under what conditions.
After scores of experiments, one theory seemed to stand out from the rest. The recently discovered work of an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel, who'd spent a decade in the mid-19th century experimenting with.
That's Germany too, right, bro?
Correct.
Okay.
peas.
Mendel learned that there was a pattern to how pea plants pass down certain traits. And you could come up with certain ratios to predict how likely it was that a pea plant would look one way or another.
Davenport took that and ran with it. He goes about breeding all kinds of animals looking for the Mendelian ratio. And in
Now, I mean,
trait after trait.
Now, just so we're clear, this is called Mendel's Law. It's called Mendel's Law. Now, Mendel's Law is the same thing. If you guys are familiar with the Yakub, the big head scientist story, if you guys are familiar with Yakub, this is the Yakub situation, right? Mendel's Law says that you can take the take the recessive from the dominant, but you cannot get the dominant from the recessive. That's Mendel's Law, right? That's showing that all species of dark pigment is superior. And from that dark pigment, you can get the lighter or the recessive of what we know as, what do you call them? Albino or albinoidism, albinoid gene, right?
Yeah,
that's why. Yeah, that's why you can get them from us, but you can't get us from them. You know what I'm saying? Like they come from us, genetically speaking, but you can't get us from them, genetically speaking, at all. Which shows Mendel's Law as we are the superior. We are the superior when it comes to genetic or genopool. We are the superior individuals. Now, what they're going to attempt to do with the eugenics crusade. Remember, I told you before. This is positive eugenics. This is them trying to breed the perfect. This is in America, by the way. This is, but by the time Germany get it, they done perfected already. North America was the petri dish for experiment, and you know you get things such as the orphan trains, and then the baby boomers a little bit later when they're trying to create the notion of the perfect YT race. But it came out of the mindset from this guy right here. this guy right here, Francis Galting, Eugene Fisher, and others. But the Carnegie Institute was a main proprietor for this stuff. The Rockefeller Group also contributed what would be like, you know, a couple million in today's money, but they gave thousands of dollars back then as well. The Carnegie gave thousands of dollars. And the Carnegie, if you're not familiar with them, the Carnegie will give you your railroad systems going through out west. The Rockefeller Oil Group, the Carnegie Oil, these are your oil and steel companies.
Yeah, you got the Peabody Foundation, which is Horace Mann's wife.
Yep. Let's go. Hold on.
The institution that he'd shifted his focus from the breeding of cats and roosters to an investigation of human traits.
So here we go. Here we go.
Having already found the Mendelian ratio in early studies of eye color and hair color, and
I'm sorry,
convinced he was on the right track.
This also stays true to today, where light eyes are recessive, darker eyes are dominant.
Yes.
Light hair is recessive. Blonde hair is very recessive, very weak. Okay, darker hair is more genetically superior. So again, now they're going to start this pseudo-science where they're going to reverse superiority and inferiority through pseudo-science. They're going to do it by default because they're really trying to rid society of these undesirables, they call them. The undesirables got to go. Yep. Yeah. The Cabbage Patch Kid, the little dirty vagabond kids that came over here early in the 1920s up on Ellis Island. They're now trying to get rid of them because they don't like how they look. They saw them as a genetic cesspool. Okay, they saw them as a genetic cesspool. So out of this ideology, then you start to get Margaret Sanger way later. This lady right here actually was a huge proprietor and contributor to the earlier Eugenics project. Now,
this is why you end up getting the orphan trains, because what they learned, it was easier to reprogram the children. The adults were already programmed on who they were. This is when they started forcing Indians to go to school, bringing Europeans over here, but children, sending them out Midwest on trains, boarding schools, because they were reprogramming them, trying to make the perfect worker, the perfect slave class.
Yep. And the live I did on the historical origins of HBCU, which we might have to do that again, bro, because the more I read about it now, those early Black orphans up in New York, a lot of those children, they began to push them over to those institutions that we call HBCUs. But it was part of what you just said. It was the forced reprogramming to kill the Indian and save the man. It was that forced programming. And what's his name? Rockefeller is quoted by saying that. I don't want to, what do you say? I don't want a bunch of thinkers. I just want workers. That's why he put so much money behind what was created, the Board of Education.
And look at what's going on. This is at the same time industrialism. That's why you find school under industrial. School is considered industrial. It's an industry. Because they created all this to get a better slave class. Because see, before this time, we was having wars, rebellions. It was hard to get people to work. People was working for themselves. So they had to reprogram these children not to stay home to work farms, not to stay home to take on your mom and pop business. Come to these schools where we're going to teach, no matter what race, remember what they said, no matter what you look like, what your religion is, all children are required to go to school to learn the same BS, reprogramming.
Yep, exactly what it was. We got somebody who just hopped on the live, sent the machine. I'm not even sure who this is, but I'm very interactive with my live. Yes, it is Reconstruction, Brother L over on TikTok. Thank you for tapping in right there. What is it about? It's about eugenics. I'm not sure if you caught the title at the beginning. Is eugenics. And this person's next question is crazy. Are you anti-YT or we literally just taught when the idea of race just came on the table. So Sanity Machine, just hang out a little bit longer in the chat and you might learn something. Thank you for being on. All right, so let's press on past this real quick.
And supplied grist for a multitude of books, pamphlets, lectures, and press releases regarding the danger of so-called inferior germplasm.
They're using the family records that are stored in the fireproof vault to prove all these traits.
Charles Davenport is a main one, man.
Traits
Yes.
are caused by genes. There's nothing you can do about it. This is
now
pure science.
What they're attempting to do is that's Charles Davenport right there. What they're attempting to do is genetically explain why some people are predisposed to certain behaviors. That's what they're attempting to do right now. Now, out of all of this, there's a term that's going to be coined later in the DSM, known as I just had it in my head. Not psychoneurosis, it's something different. Geez, I think of it in a second, but it's basically you're predisposed genetically to have certain behaviors based on your environment. Genetically, meaning if your mom went through something traumatic while she was pregnant with you, that genetic marker automatically goes to you. I think a term, but it's an actual
selective breeding. Yeah, selective breeding.
Selective breeding is definitely part of it. But they're trying to figure out how can we get the perfect race of people. Okay. And this laboratory in Coal Harbor Springs, New York, was one of those first laboratorial places where they experimented on people. Epigenetics. Thank you so much, Empress. Thank you. Thank you. Epigenetics. That's the term. Epigenetics. And
people refuse.
With epigenetics, that was a term that I was talking about earlier. Genetically, you're predisposed through genetic markers to be certain things. You ever notice? I said this before all the time. You never notice when your grandma had somebody come over your house, or you had your friends come over your grandma's house or your people's house back in the day. Your parents would ask who your friend is and ask what their mama name, what their granddad name, who their uncle is, and they're just trying to trace back who this boy belonged to, like who his family is. And sure enough, if his uncle is a stealer, killer, drug dealer, whatever the case is, then your people automatically assume it's highly likely that he's not too far from the tree. Okay, so this is what they're doing on a genetic level. It's saying like whatever genetic marker predisposed these people to be, who your people. There you go, right? Who your people is. Grandma trying to find out who this joker is. But on their level,
reading between the lines, what your ancestors were exposed to will never allow you to be whole because you would take that with you. Why do you think they're saying this? Because what just happened? The wars, the end of personal employment, and now employment became federal and state. So they're trying to argue why to keep a particular class of people at a particular state.
Wow. I hadn't thought about that, bro. Wow.
Think about it. Why would they let you have same equal rights when they're going to tell you your people have been through slavery and the harsh treatments that you've been through got you disproposed to do anything in society that's valuable? They was tying it all together. Like I said, it's when you do history and timelines, I like it because you'll realize there's multiple things going on in policy and creation at the same time that links all this together.
That's facts on facts. Now, what I want to do for just for the sake of time is jump into this PowerPoint so we can follow along before we get too far off in it. So this PowerPoint, hold on, man, my TikTok and crazy. This PowerPoint, as you all know, is available. It will be available. Going through the email up here in the jank real quick. Hit me on the email for the PowerPoint. This is like a 35 slide PowerPoint, and along with it being a 35-minute I'm sorry, 30 minute, a 30 slide PowerPoint. I have hyperlinks throughout the PowerPoint too, just for my citation. Because I know sometimes people be asking, like, I gotta see the source, see the source. Well, the sources are actually on the PowerPoint itself. And as I go through it, you'll see it. But if you would like the email, shoot me an email. But along with the email, though, y'all already know what it is. Like, donate. You want to drop $2 in the pot? That's cool. As a matter of fact, do that. Hit me on the Cash App and the subject matter. Just put PowerPoint, and I'll send you the PowerPoint. Put your email in there, though. When you see me the Cash App, it can be $1, $2. I don't care what it is. $2, $3. I don't care what it is. Put your email on the Cash App so I can send you the PowerPoint. Over on TikTok as well. You see the email. You see the Cash App right here on the bottom of the screen on TikTok. Hit that Cash App. Put your email in there. I'll send you this PowerPoint. So I'm gonna get better about how I disseminate information. I had a conversation the other day with some brothers, and I need to fine tune how I disseminate information. Okay, so I'm gonna work on these PowerPoints and give you guys more PowerPoints. I can stay on point. People like myself and Brother Bones be knowing so much information in history. Sometimes when we disseminate the information, it can get a little bit convoluted from the people who don't know. Because I know when I talk about history, or if I hear Brother Bones talking about Prussia, my mind goes to that time period, and my mind also goes around the world, and I know world history, what was happening at that same time frame. But it's just my brain, though, right? Everybody don't have that ability. Some people have greater abilities than that. But my point is to structure the lesson. So let's go to the cover. Eugenic Holocaust, Examining Legacy, Pseudoscience, and Racial Ideology by myself. Okay. Introduction. Overview of eugenics, Cold Harbor Springs, influence on the 20th century science and racial ideologies. Development of eugenics, definition and objectives, positive versus negative eugenics. Focus on forced sterilization as the racial control method. Key figures going to be people like Charles Davenport, Eugene Fisher, Lothrop Stoddard, Francis Galting. Jot those names down, please. Charles Davenport, Eugene Fisher, Lothrop Stoddard, Francis Galting. And of course, there's many others. We just talked about Johann Blumenbacher, the one who gave you the idea of race classification. Carl Linnaeus is another one. J. Marion Sims is another one. Okay, we got to start calling these people names. You can't just start saying, oh, the white people, European. Now, who, which ones were doing what? And I think that'd help us out a little bit better. Cold Harbor Spring, that was the location. Learn about forced sterilization. The first case was 1907, dealing with the engines of the so-called Native Americans. That was the first case of forced sterilization. Of course, they've been eradicating them way before 1907. So eradication and sterilization comes later. The last case was 1981 in Oregon. I will definitely challenge. I thought it was 1984, 83 in South Carolina. This young woman of color were sterilized like 83, 84 in South Carolina. Disproportionately targeting people of color. That was my problem with eugenics. Like the positive eugenics were all for YT people. The negative eugenics is when it got onto us. And I think one of the first cases was out in Indianapolis, a group called the Ben Ishmael tribe. Are you familiar with them, brother? Ben Ishmael tribe?
No, not really.
Okay. So the Ben Ishmael tribe, very interesting story. We'll deal with it here in a second. But they were like an amalgamated group of just wanderers of mixed race, multi-race, and multi-faceted individuals who all adhered to the teachings of Islamic teaching. They had turbans on their heads and everything. Because again, we're talking about race and color, right? Race color concept is a new proximity in the Americas in this time frame. People are aware of it, but it ain't like, it was drilled in our head through institutions. So anyway, the Ben Ishmael tribe is Ben Ishmael. Ben means son, right? Ben Israel, all sons of Israel. The Ben Ishmael tribe. Let me pull them up real quick. The Ben Ishmael tribe. There are multiple matches for Ben Ishmael tribe, including a poor family in Indianapolis, Indiana, and an Islamic domination in Kentucky. There's a map also. I don't know if we're going to pull up the map. Yep, the map right here. Here's a map of how they actually travel, and it has Chicago as Mecca right here. This is the actual map of the Ben Ishmael tribe. And let's talk about who they were, because they're all descendants of supposedly Ishmael. The Ben Ishmael tribe, also known as Tribe of Ishmael, was a name given to a poor white Anglo-Saxon Protestant family, in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the late 19th and early 20th century. The family was known for avoiding wage labor in Indianapolis. The family patriarch, Benjamin Ishmael, served in the American Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. The family's history was used by Eugenics Eugenics advocates the urge for forced sterilization laws, and also invoked during the congressional hearing that led to the Immigration Act of 1924. So these were the first individuals that this thing was practiced on, this, and inside the states at mass quantities. Indianapolis passed a law where they basically forced sterilize a lot of people who were declared to be feeble-minded, or what they call an idiot. These are terms. In the Islamic domination in Kentucky, a tribe of Ishmael was the name of the Islamic domination in Kentucky that was made up of people of various backgrounds, including African, Native Americans, and poor whiteys. The group first appeared in Noble County, now Bourbon County, Kentucky, between 1785 and 1790. These are the Ben Ishmael tribe. The tribe of Ishmael is a biblical, not those people. This is the Ben Ishmael tribe, but I won't go too much into who they are. Let you guys do your own research. But it'll be worth the wait and go that you guys go and study the Ben Ishmael tribe. They were supposedly the first Islamic-based faith group movement in North America. This predates the notion of the first mosque set up in, I want to say Cincinnati, Ohio. Yeah, Ohio, the first mosque in Ohio, followed by, Detroit, Chicago, New York, Jersey, and so on and so forth. This predates the M.O.I Science Temple. This predates Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This predates all those movements. But strong, close resemblance to those movements. The family was described to be towel-headed, or white blonde. Aside from a half-breed, half-Native American mother, the Ishmaels were explained to have wandering blood, causing them to gypsy or travel. That's what a gypsy means, travel, a traveler. In wagons, east or west. In addition, the Ishmaels were known for whatever that is, which characterized the men and women. Their lifestyle was encouraged by almost ultimately public and private aid. So they were that poor. McCall claims that the Ishmael clan, had a criminal record of mostly prostitution, thieving, larceny, and even murder, while making up 3/4 of the hospital cases in Indianapolis. So that's a little about who they were. And I bring them up because they become an important figure in the American eugenics movement. They were the first ones on record to be euthanized as people, just because of their low standard of living and how they live. They look like vagabonds. I'll show you pictures in a second. They look very like some people over in Germany look a little bit later in the 40s.
Your American gypsies. These are American gypsies that they show in them old Western movies that's just wandering the land, going from place to place.
Yep. Now, what's crazy is, if you were a wanderer and you're in places like the Middle East at that time, they would call you a Bedouin or a Arab. That's what the term Arab is not a people or a person. It's from the word Arabia, which means car, like move, like something that moves around a lot. A desert dweller or Bedouin is the same term as these people right here. Now, so coincidentally, from what I heard, and brother, you can tap in the term gypsy itself is a edification of the word Egyptian, those who traveled north into Europe, who were pushed out of Egypt, those who knew the stars and the wonders of the herbs and stuff like that. They were also called gypsies. If you look at the word itself, I think you add an E back to it, it'd be Egyptian or Egypt. You can see the E added right here. It turns to the word Egypt. That's just what I heard, that they were part of the Egyptian dynamic too.
Yeah, because you got to remember this. The name Egypt comes from when the Europeans did rule in Egypt. That's who changed the name to Egypt.
Damn, makes sense. Too much sense. All right, so I just want to give you guys a little background on the Ben Ishmael tribe. Let's get back to this real quick so we can get on with this. The impacts on African Americans, how eugenics shaped the perception of African Americans, segregation, sterilization are justified through pseudo-science. Eugene Fisher's work influencing Nazi racial purity policies and the global spread of racial eugenics from U.S. to Germany. Ongoing consequences of pseudoscience, ethnic challenges addressing the history of scientific racism. Introduction. Overview. The rise of eugenics in the late 1800s and ties to scientific racism. This is a real thing, y'all. Scientific racism is a real thing. It was based on, I would say, probably about 72% hatred and maybe 5% science and the rest just BS. But it was just scientific. They figured, if you got good genes and high cheekbones and you got a nice jawline, and I'm gonna tell you the race of people who they tried to emulate, these YT people in America with this movement when they started what was called positive eugenics. The group they tried to emulate were the Nordics. I think it was the Nordics, the Alpine, and one other group that they tried to emulate. Okay, because you got to think they came over mixed up. Let me.
They looked up to the Aryans.
The Aryans, Alpines, and Nordics. There you go. Those three.
Yeah, and the Aryans are just an older. They would come out of Hindustan, but that's a whole nother story.
Hindustan, which is lower India, correct?
Yes.
Okay, Hindustan. Got it. Thesis. Cold Harbor Spring played a crucial role in shaping scientific attitudes towards race, particularly influencing negative perceptions of African Americans in the early 20th century. Now, remember a little bit earlier before we got started, I showed you things like the Harlem Renaissance. Trying to establish some positivity that we were not all looking crazy. In the 20s, a lot of us had it going on. In the 20s, a lot of us didn't have it going on, to which this unfortunate tragedy happened to. Eugenics is an immoral pseudo-scientific theory that claim it's possible to perfect people in groups through genetics and the scientific law of inheritance. Eugenicists use an incorrect and prejudiced understanding of the work of Charles Darwin, Dr. Gregor Mendel, to support the idea of racial improvement. So those are going to be the basis. That's going to be the ground floor for this whole entire movement, is based on what Charles Darwin put out and Greg Mendel. So just write down Charles Darwin. You know who Charles Darwin is. You know a lot about him. I know you just think he's, the chart of evolution. Yeah, but I'm going to show you the title of the book was way longer than that. It was The Origin of Species and Select Origin of Species and Survival of the Fittest. Basically, you don't survive in the environment, you need to be eradicated. Survival of the fittest was his whole premise. Charles Darwin, who's also a racist. His great nephew, also in a minute, Mr. Galting, carried the same sentiments of his great uncle, Charles Darwin. And these people I'm going to show you on these photos were, I'm not going to say powerful people, but they were in positions of authority at that time period and being financed by the Carnegies and the Rockefellers. Like they had almost a unlimited budget to go around feeding this propaganda. And this was a time in America where YT people were very, very afraid.
And add this part to it. These are their college dissertations. These studies that when you hear about Charles Darwin in his book, when you hear about Mendel and his law, these are their theses that they wrote to get their degrees. That's why everything that they do moving forward is based on this.
That's facts. That is absolute fact. Cold Harbor Springs played a crucial role in shaping the scientific attitudes towards race, particularly influencing the negative perception of African Americans in the early 20th century. Now, in the early 20th century, we're talking about the time period when Noble Drew Ali was supposedly standing on milk crates in Newark, New Jersey, screaming out to supposed Negroes. And it was said that Noble Drew Ali was telling people that you're not black, you're not colored, you're not Negroes. These are all terms given to you by slaveholders, trying to reestablish their nationality. You had a young scrapping brother from Jamaica named Marcus Mosiah Garvey over here in that time frame, the 1920s, telling us to rise up, you mighty race of people. At the same time, you see these YT anthropologists and scientists genetically about to destroy us. So again, I told you, it's going to be social, political. The two areas that so-called black people are kept out of are social and political. According to science, black means death. Which science? Social science and political science.
That's why I always say definitions are very tricky, because I always use this example. The definitions for my car don't mean anything when I'm dealing with my refrigerator.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Cold Harbor Springs played a particular influence. Okay, it became a hub for eugenics research under figures like Charles Davenport. So far, I probably gave like 5 names. Y'all write these names down. This is not for entertainment purposes. This is for teaching. This is for learning. Get a piece of paper and a pen, eyeliner, or something to write with, and just take notes. If you would like a copy of this PowerPoint, again, Cash App is on the screen. In the comment of the Cash App, just put your email. I send you the email. You can donate $2, $3, whatever you want to donate. But this is a lot of work. There's like 35 slides, great information. And the hyperlinks are in the slide also. So if you want to go look at the citation and prove what I got on here, then feel free to do that. So anyway, these studies open focus on racial purity, genetics, fitness, reinforce harmful stereotypes about African Americans, portraying them as biologically inferior. This genetic mindset not only influenced U.S. racial policies, including segregation and forced sterilization, but also contributed to the global ideology, including those embraced by Nazi Germany. Now, a little bit later, we're going to see how Germany starts a program called Rhineland Bastards. We'll see it in a second, and about who does about also, right? So Cold Harbor Springs, it's a place in New York. This is where his first eugenics laboratory is going to pop up at in America. So go look that up. Charles Davenport becomes like the admiral, the general of this movement, and there's going to be many others. Now at this time, Margaret Sanger is just starting off with her little pamphlet. Margaret Sanger is not even thought of at the time that Cold Harbor Spring was coming up, but they're going to meet
find them under them. Oh, I'm sorry. You can find them under the ERO as well.
ERO?
The Eugenics, the Eugenics record office. Because it's kind of funny what the ERO did. The ERO collected records like census information. And that's how they did their science, by knowing family members, what you own, what your tax. It gets deep.
You right, bro. Damn, you're right. Okay, so today for us, it'll be called the House of Interior. Just in case somebody want to go check that out. The House of Interior is where your authentic birth certificates are at. I got my birth. You got a copy of your birth. You don't have the original birth certificates at the House of Interior, and that yeah, right. So the House of Interior do the same thing he was just saying. Also, in Virginia in the 1920s, you're gonna see a joke about a name of I won't give his name away. Yeah, matter of fact.
But how do you think he was able? How do you think he was able to go back and change people's records? Because the ERO collected them all for eugenics.
Oh boy, connecting the dots. Connecting the freaking dots.
Remember, he did that in 1924. Remember, this is all happened. All these people are working together.
No, they are, and that's one thing that I had began to figure out. Like, wait a minute, these jokers are almost saying the same thing, and you can damn near find them doing the same thing. Who was talking about is one Albert Plek, not Albert, Walter Plecker, who was at the in charge of
Department of Vital Statistics.
Department of Biostatistics, which is damn near the same thing as eugenics joint, right?
This is how the department, this is how he had the records. Realize this department started and nobody had to send records to them. Remember, Walter Plecker was automatically able to access the records. So now you have to ask yourself, this newly formed department, where did they get the records? Remember, the ERO was before this. The ERO already collected everything. So they knew who was Indians. They knew who came over here. They knew who had what property, who had what inheritance. And then they started using eugenics to remove it from you, to say you wasn't worthy, you wasn't fit. Because at the same time, what are they doing? They setting up asylums left and right.
Damn, that's crazy. Damn, that's crazy. But I hope y'all are starting to see how this all tied together. And I haven't even cracked the lid yet. I haven't cracked the lid yet. All right, so that's Cold Harbor Springs, New York. Write that down. Charles Davenport. Charles Davenport is going to become a critical point, a person in this whole conversation. So please write down Charles Davenport. All right, Charles Darwin, another Charles, but I'm Charles, mischief making, primarily known as the architect of the theory of evolution. The term theory lets me know that it has not been proven. It's still a hypothesis. It's an educated guess at best is what this theory is. So keep that in mind when we're talking about who from Africa, who not from Africa. It's an out of Africa theory. Do you know anything to the contrary, bro? Has it been proven? Or is it still a theory?
Last I checked, it's still a theory with a bunch of new theories that done popped up.
Oh, not new ones. They got some new ones out there. That's hilarious. Primarily known as architect of theory of evolution by natural selection, with the publication of his Origin of Species. I told you it's a longer title, and I'm showing you in a second. With his publication on the Origin of Species in 1859, he advanced a view of development of life on Earth that profoundly shaped nearly all biological and much philosophical thought which followed. And that's what pseudoscience is. It's a bunch of philosophers with a little bit of backing to try to, and they never proved any of this, by the way. They never proved that feeble-mindedness is genetically hereditary. They never proved any of their claims to substantiate their reason for mass eugenics or sterilization was come next, which Planned Parenthood and birth control and stuff like that is this. Like, that's when they modified it. By the time you got the little pill of the plant in your arm, they modified it, and it was all out of fear of overpopulation. There are too many people of color, and I think it's been said now by the year 2075 or 20 something this term that an American will look totally different, like a Brazilian or a Congolese person. An American will have a certain look, and it'd be a person of color. I'm not saying it's going to be looking like us, all black, but it's going to return back to the natural origin of what they saw when they first got here in the 13, 14, 1500s. It's going to go back to that. And genetically, YT people won't be able to keep up. I believe 2011, YT people was they were at minus birth rate. Last I checked, right? And this is not hatred. This is just science, by the way. It's all love here. But I think it was 2011.
Why do you think in America they started including certain people as white? Remember, people that they consider white in 2024 was not always considered white. They play with the numbers.
That's facts. That's fact. Oh, it was 20. Let me pull it real quick. It was 2016. They were at minus birth rate, meaning more people were dying than being born. Meaning they're running out of people. United States YT deaths have exceeded YT births in a number of years, including 2016 was the first time in U.S. history that YT unaliving or deaths exceeded the white birth rates across the entire country. In 26 states, more than Hispanics, YT unalive than born. 2020, 2021, the YT population experienced a large negative natural increase, meaning more deaths than births. In 2018, 2019, same thing, but it dropped. In 2020, 2021, they're still dropping. Majority of U.S. states, the deaths of now outnumber the births of YT people in more than half of the states of the country. Decline of birth rate for YT people is due to a number of factors: fertilization, mortality, and aging. Yeah, they don't. Okay, I won't say what I want to say, but you guys can see it. Oh yeah, I got that link right there too, bro. Just sent me. I got that link for you. So this is part of the reason. Like, they knew this back in the 20s that we ain't gonna make it. So I won't get into other programs such as like cloning, which has always been popular amongst them. You ever ask yourself why they use white lab mice, white lab rats, and not colored lab rats? Even though there's no white mice in nature, they're genetically modified species to do experiments on. They're always a white lab mice in the laboratory. The pigment or melanin factor is too high in colored lab mice, so it doesn't matriculate the experiment very well. So it's something to notice. Just want to show you some facts on those people. So going back to what I said earlier, when you acknowledge YT superiority, you automatically acknowledge Black inferiority. And as you can see, numbers don't lie. But they have convinced us to stop populating too, though. We have been convinced to stop populating. We have been convinced to having kids is such a negative connotation since, 10 years ago, I think. But most Black folks, it'd be hard pressed to find a young lady now with more than 2 kids. When it used to be very normal and natural for us to have upwards to 8, 9, 10, 12 kids in one family. I know families personally have 15, 16 people in one family. They're just fine. Even during the time of enslavement, 15, 20, a lot of our elder uncles and granddaddies and mothers and aunties came out of those big families. This is part of the reason they were so fearful. Like, we had kids. And as to Francis Cress Welsing point, they know anytime a Black man, anytime we go into something Black coming out, period. Call it mulatto, call it light skin, call it what you want to call it. But that's going back to Mendel's law of Black being dominant and white being recessive. That's just science. Then they hit it. Yep. Then they start pushing the alphabet community on our men's. I don't like men's no more. What a dude name. He said that. I don't like men's no more. They start pushing that alternative lifestyle on our people, trying to decrease our population. And it worked, I think, for what it did, but yet and still their birth rate is such on a decline. That's why I said, I think by the year 2075, you would be hard pressed to find more generations of YT people naturally spawning versus the genetic modification they've been going through for quite some time of cloning. And it's easier to clone them from what I read because they're not carbon based. And anybody correct me if I'm saying something that's incorrect now. When it comes to cloning, they're more susceptible to the product. Just like, for example, things like silicone, like they're silicone based people. We're primarily carbon based people. So when we try to do things with silicone, we get those nasty defects. Ladies, moving on. The curse of Darwin's theory of evolution focuses on eliminating of inferior species gradually over time. That's what this chart is about. It ain't about nobody come. And if anybody come from monkeys, we know who it is. According to science, not according to what I just said. Anybody that comes from monkey we already know who comes from monkeys. If you've ever heard the term, "I'd just be a monkey's uncle," that's a term. We went over this before quite some time. Go look up this word, please. For my TikTok, it's your first time seeing this terminology. A troglodyte Niger. I won't say the correct pronunciation of it. I'll just say Niger, which is a Greek word which means black. The black troglodyte. What race is the troglodyte? I'm almost afraid to click it. I'm almost scared to click it. Ooh, troglodyte race are reptilian humanoids said to be descendants from dragons, and troglodytes inhabit the jungles of whatever that is right there. Reptilian humanoids. Did anybody hear Nancy Pelosi the other week what she said she was, what they were? Nobody heard Nancy Pelosi said that they were reptilians. Nancy Pelosi announced she's a reptilian. In her own words. In her own words. Nancy Pelosi, hard-nosed and cold-blooded prior. She said it. Nancy Pelosi admitted that they are reptilians. And if you don't know who Nancy Pelosi is, go jump in traffic. But right here, which ain't hard to believe. Come on, man. It's not hard to believe that she's a reptilian, but she just came out and said it. Wasn't joking, didn't crack a smile, didn't skip a beat, just kept right on talking. So all that to say, we have an idea who the troglodytes are. We're talking about evolution, coming from a monkey to being a man. I noticed in that chart that it never showed people of color in that chart, which was pretty cool. All right, so dealing with Charles Darwin is bringing about something called social Darwinism. And social Darwinism begins to be a movement. Social Darwinism is the study and the implementation of various pseudoscientific theories and societal practices that purport to apply biology concepts of natural selection and survival of the fittest to sociology, economic, and politics. I told you it's going to be social economic. This whole conversation ain't got nothing to do with nobody liking nobody, nothing to do with racism, nothing to do with hatred. This is a social economical plight. If you didn't pay attention in social studies, shame on you. This is social. Because I thought it was all about the YT people subjecting our people to some shit until I realized that our people were involved too. The Boule Society was involved. And listen, boy, it's so hard to talk about it. When I saw that the Black Aristocrat Society of the 1920s, you know, that's your W.E.B. Du Bois and all that society, you know, the HBCU graduates at that point. That particular society was definitely they were definitely for eugenics. They felt like we had to weed out the lower class of Black people in our society too, like the ones who were, let's put it in today's terms, you know, the ones who keep going to jail, getting in trouble, ain't trying to get married, got babies everywhere, ladies who are super promiscuous, doing crazy stuff, you know, just feeble-minded, uneducated, low life living, just poverty, impoverished, perpetuated people. W.E.B. Du Bois felt like we should rid the Black community of the same things. I'm gonna show you in a second. He actually, well, at first he was debating the whole idea of eugenics, and then later they actually lobbied for a Planned Parenthood clinic to come to Harlem.
Because again, don't let skin color fool you. A lot of these people, they're related. Who did their funding come from? Who backed them? The same Carnegie Ford foundations are the same ones that's backing them.
Damn.
The talented 10th, what did he really want to do? Come on, man. They already told you when it came to a particular Black America, only what, the 10th of them was worth something everybody else they was throwing away.
This is facts. This is facts. Facts on facts. And we'll get to it in a second. I don't want to give it away. So support eugenics, racism, imperialism, and fascism. If you don't know what those words are, please write those words down. Again, this PowerPoint is available. The Cash App at the bottom of the screen. Shoot me a Cash App. It can be $1, $2, whatever the case is. Put your email in the Cash App though, and I send you this entire PowerPoint. These things are these highlights I got up here are these and where's it at? These links, these things are highlighted. You're able to click on those things and take it to other things. If you know what racism is, you can click on the imperialism, fascism, click on them, take it right to it. Again, I have the hyperlinks on this as well. Let's talk about Sir Francis Galton real quick. Sir Francis Galton. Galton was Charles Darwin's half cousin. Galton, I thought it was his nephew, his cousin. Galton was knighted in 1909 for his contributions to science. When you get knighted by the Queen, that's a very high honor. That's a very pivotal point in your career, whether it be you be in academia or whatever you're doing. To get crowned, it was like you got the key to the kingdom at that point. So Sir Francis Galton, we're gonna get back to him in a second too, but he's somebody of noteworthy to right now. He is akin to Charles Darwin, and not just akin to him, he also carries Charles Darwin's sentiments about race relations as it relates to superior species and inferior species as well. Charles Davenport, here we go. This is called the American Breeders Association. This is the grandfather to Planned Parenthood. This is the grandfather to the American Birth Control League. Because before it was Planned Parenthood, she had 3 other names prior to that name. But this is the precursor to Planned Parenthood and a precursor to the American Birth Control League. It's called the American Breeders Association. ABA was the first national organization in the United States to promote eugenics and the genetic research. The ABA's commitment on eugenics established at the request of Harvard biologist Charles Davenport, studied eugenics and promoted the ideas of selective breeding and control hereditary in humans. So this sets up the bloodline. This sets up the inheritable bloodline of who's going to get what right here. This sets up the bloodline. Not that they didn't already do it with the eradication of the Native Americans, but they went a step further and say, well, who's supposed to get these inheritance based on your bloodline? And like the brother said earlier, a little bit later, you're going to get Walter Plecker, one drop law. You're going to get the Indian tribes now talking about bloodlines when bloodline has never been mentioned before when it came to Indian heritage. It was never about the blood because you had an amalgamated groups of Indians all throughout the Southeast who were band together due to various reasons. So whether you can't look at nobody's blood and tell what tribe they came from. That's nonsense. Nor can you look at nobody's spit and tell what tribe they came from. Now, are there genetic markers and precursors of people around the world that you can kind of align people with? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you can't put no spit under a microscope and say somebody's from the Cheyenne tribe or from the Shinnecock tribe or from the Sioux tribe based on your spit. That is ridiculous. In fact, I think the CEO of 23andMe stepped down. They're about to lose their 23andMe is over with from what I just read. 23andMe, all you people out here sending your spit to these companies, you don't know where it's going. There's one guy on TikTok sent his horse spit and sent his iguana spit in or DNA in. I'm not say spit, something DNA in to 23andMe, and his horse and his iguana are both 82% Nigerian, and they belong to the Igbo tribe, according to 23andMe. That's what he did. But the 23andMe joint is over with, man. But the point I'm making is this is what they started to do: genetic research. This is how they found out that people of color, particularly Black people, Achilles tendon is longer than everybody else's. We're faster. We can jump higher, more agile than everybody else. They found a couple of other things about us too as they researched. Okay. And ladies that are watching, just hold tight and wait till I get to J. Marion Sims. The next time you go to your OGBYN, you'll be looking like, you know what? I found out what y'all really be doing, where y'all came from. This is crazy. So I'm gonna show you the father of the OGBYN or gynecology too, and he was around the same time frame when all these experiments was going on with these Negroes. And this is not anything to do with Tuskegee Project. That's later. It's going to be a mountain pile of notes of experiments and experimentational ideologies that they're going to. Somebody said all of them step down. So 23andMe, the whole board stepped down. I figured. So this is Charles Davenport. Eugenics movement, an overview. Pseudo-scientific movement aimed at improving genetic qualities of humans. Positive genetics encourage reproduction amongst desirable population. Negative eugenics prevented reproduction among undesired population, including forced sterilization. The key location again was Cold Harbor Springs as the central hub for eugenic research in the late 19th century. Positive eugenics was trying to get YT people at the time to have more babies. Let me show you real quick. Positive eugenics. I'll pull up on my screen real quick so you guys can see what it looked like. White babies. It's kind of crazy too. So the Eugenics Project started off as a polemic or a dilemma trying to save the great white race, the great YT race. Hey, on TikTok, you hear me say a word, just put F1 in the comments before they cut me off. I don't say it YT about 5 times. F1. For those of y'all don't know, on TikTok, you got to put F1 in the comments so the algorithm won't pick up on certain words and terms and they'll clip you off or delete your live. So thank you so much, Coco. Appreciate you on that. So yeah, the positive eugenics we're dealing with them increasing their population. I just demonstrated, showed you on screen a second ago that they were at negative birth rate, and they've been at negative birth rate for a long time. And you can kind of start to tell who's really from this planet and who's not from the planet. The people from the planet got an endless supply. You remember the stork bringing a baby to the house? That stork bringing a child to the house was part of the orphan train movement as well. The orphan train was sending those YT babies out west to populate the western frontier. I know a lot of them went out there on what's called the Oregon Trail. Telling my age now. The Oregon Trail, but they couldn't take the kids couldn't survive that trip. Pretty much, they went out there to put a stake in the ground and set up their makeshift homes to take advantage of what's called the Homestead Act. Now, before the Homestead Act, they had heads' rights in the 1600s. Now they got the Homestead Act. Bro, can you speak to the Homestead Act and the Western expansion?
Yeah, the Homestead Act is what opened it up for them to move out there. Because at the same time this is going on, you have the Racial Integrity Act as well.
Yes, sir.
Meaning that these people had privilege because everybody else was considered colored.
Damn, think about it like that. Yep. So remember,
these are children, right? So these children, they don't know anything. See, when you step back and you realize what they were really doing, they brought these European children over here that didn't know nothing that what was going on. Then they go to school here. They go to school here with the people that's here. So now you're programming the new children of immigrants and the children of Indians, because remember, at the same time, they're taking Indian children and sending them to the same schools as well. Remember, this is the early 1920s.
Yep. That's exactly what's happening. And see, this is why I tell people, bro, like, I love all history. But the most fascinating part of history that I felt like this the most jam-packed with information was like the late 1800s to like the mid 1900s. So that's like what we are right now, like the 1880s to like the 1960s. If you guys study everything from the 1880s, the 1960s will make so much sense to you. Like,
you ready? You ready for the doozy? because the parents of the children of the 1960s are the children of the 1920s.
Facts.
Why do you think when it came out with the civil rights, it was the elder ones that was telling the youth, no, you're going about it wrong? Because these are the children that were programmed, that programmed their children to start going into these colleges. Now you're getting the black bourgeoisie.
Damn. I love it. No, it's facts. It's facts, bro. Facts on facts. Let's forge ahead. One of the greatest debates ever held in 1929. Now, the gentleman on the right, we haven't got to him yet, but the guy on the left, you should recognize W.E. Du Bois. Lothrop Stoddard, keep in mind, one of the greatest debates held in 1929. Debate will cover cultural equality. Shall the Negro be encouraged to seek cultural equality? Was the Negro the same intellectual possibilities as other races? W.E. Du Bois said yes, while Lothrop Stoddard says no. Note the credentials and main beliefs of the two speakers. Now, I think I got the link on here.
But also remember this too. When they're saying Negro at this time, they're not speaking in 1924. Remember, at this time, Italians are considered Negroes. Sicilians are Negroes. The only people coming out of Germany are the only people at this time getting the title as white.
That is true. That is true. That is true. And that's why I thought it was important early to show people at one time they would call nobody none of that stuff. Nobody could been called white or black at one time. I want to pull this up real quick. It's like the freaking main event. Well, it's like fight night. And just spoiler alert, W.E. Du Bois tore his ass up. Like he got laughed out the building. When I say he, I'm talking about Lothrop Stoddard got laughed out the building. But however, he did go on to win the hearts and minds of Germans, which really blew him up. When W.E. Du Bois made a laughing stock of white supremacists. See, they had like the main event fight, man. I mean, W.E. Du Bois, 20th century leading. Let me bust up a little bit for my TikTok people. W.E. Du Bois, the 20th century leading a black intellectual, and once lived at 3059 Villa Avenue in Bronx. Shouts out to New York in the building, Jersey in the building. He moved to a small rented house there with his wife, Nina Gomer Du Bois, their daughter, Yolanda, in 1912. Blah, blah, blah. Don't get much to the whole thing. God, let's saw this. About 40-minute walk from the Bronx Zoo in 1912. Write down 1912 Bronx Zoo. Anybody from Brooklyn, Bronx? I'm sorry, from the Bronx. This is when the guy, Madison Grant, I said Horace Greeley. It was Madison Grant. Madison Grant did some crap that was crazy. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but it was crazy. About 40-minute walk from the Bronx Zoo in 1912. It was called the New York Zoological Park, and it was ran by the patriarch named Madison Grant from an old New York family. Though he and Du Bois lived and worked within a few miles of each other for decades, I don't know if the two ever met. As much as anyone in the plant, Grant was Du Bois' natural enemy. Grant favored a certain type of YT man over all kinds. I'm not going to buy that. The New Yorker just put a banner thing. The point of the matter is, keep that guy in mind. Grant, keep him in mind. Keep Bronx Zoo in mind, 1912. I'm going to show you what's going on in Bronx Zoo in 1912. Remember, we're not going to leave the 1900s with this conversation.
Oh, yeah, and Tyann, that before they came into human science, that these dudes were zoologists.
Right. And that's another crazy part, too, bro. That's why I came across, I mentioned earlier, Carl Linnaeus and other, they all had, like, they didn't have anthropologists at first. They had, like, they did have anthropologists, biologists, zoologists. All of them had the zoologist part. I'm like, zoologists, which makes sense, because now I'm tired of looking to people like, hold on, Carl Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy. Now it makes sense to deal with somebody like Carl Linnaeus, who's Swedish, by the way, Carl Linnaeus, who's the father of taxonomy. If you know what taxonomy is, that's the category of species where you get your amphibian and reptile and your categories. That's called taxonomy. And he's the father of taxonomy. Another interesting character that I didn't put on my PowerPoint is Samuel Morton. Samuel Morton is a physician also dealing with zoology and scientific racism as well. He's an American natural scientist and writer as one of the early figures of scientific racism. That's an actual thing. It's an actual thing. Scientific racism, sometimes termed biological racism, is a pseudo-science. Pseudo means false or fake, like pseudepigrapha when it comes to religion. The Bible is considered to be pseudepigrapha to some people. And pseudo-scientific belief that human species is divided into biological distinct taxes called race, and that empirical evidence exists to support or justify racial discrimination, racial inferiority, or racial superiority. This was a created science. Again, so when we propagate white supremacy, F1, please. YT supremacy, you automatic by default are acknowledging black inferiority. But this shit was all made up. That's what me and the bro trying to teach y'all. Like this stuff was slap made up. They're putting pseudoscience. Like, this is pseudoscience. Pseudo means fake, false, not real. We're just gonna create some stuff. But it was so detrimental to the advancement of so-called people of color at a time frame. It was very detrimental to us and others, not just so-called African Americans. It's everybody of color. This is part of the systemic racism according to science. This is going to kick off Tuskegee Project and so many other some we don't even know about experimentations on people of color. This what gave them the platform for it. People like Samuel Morton, people like Frederick Blumenbacher. We call them names. These jokers created this stuff. And we even got to the Franz Boas, and that's what the academia of history. Then we got to deal with Franz Boas. What's the other dude named Melvin Herkovich? That's the history side of messing with your brain about where you come from. They're going to tell you scientifically you come from Africa, and they're substantiating their claim based on pseudoscience.
And remember, all this is social political science.
That's it. That's it. It's social political science. Oh, man. All right, let's continue. This is crazy. So this debate went on, and W.E. Du Bois ended up obliterating Lothrop Stoddard. Lothrop Stoddard is somebody that should be studied. If you're not familiar with Lothrop Stoddard, please look him up. I'll pull up on the screen as the next person of interest so you guys can see who he was. He was a devout racist. This person was a devout racist. Lothrop Stoddard. He didn't try to hide it. He don't care about nothing else. He is all for the perfect species, the race species, which I told you becomes the Alpine, the Nordic, and you said it earlier, bro. What's the other one? And the Aryan. The Alpine, the Nordic, and the Aryan are the supreme race. And this debate actually happened. This is an actual situation. This actually happened. If it was on TikTok, it went crazy. It was on, it went live back then. It went crazy. But this was actual debate. But his book became popular, The Rising Tide of Color. This is along with Grant, Madison Grant, putting out publications also dealing with one African young man named Otabenga in New York Bronx Zoo in 1912, showing the comparison of how feeble-minded people of color are. Like, we're all slow and dumb, we're lethargic, come on. Some of us don't fit that description, but some of us are lazy in our ways. Not at all how they saying it. Lothrop Stoddard, let's check him out real quick. This is the guy that debated with W.B. Du Bois. Was an American historian, journalist, political science, and white supremacist. Stoddard wrote several books which advocated eugenics and YT supremacy, Nordicism. This is where you get the three perfect race from right here. The ideal. Nordicism is an ideology which views a historical race concept of the Nordic race as an endangered and superior racial group. Some notable to influence Nordic works, including Madison Grant. I just told you about him. Madison Grant put out a book called The Passing of a Great Race in 1916. 1912, Madison Grant put a young African named Odebenga in a cage beside a monkey and had YT spectators throw food at him. Odebenga survived the encaption of the zoo, but later committed suicide. He could. I mean, that's come on, man. That's relegating somebody's psyche, somebody's worth to that less than a monkey, an animal. But he had Odebenga in that cage to try to dispel the original notion that they are the troglodyte niggers. Like, he tried to show Odebenga was primitive like a monkey. And Odebenga was supposedly a descendant of the original people out of Africa known as the Pygmy or the Twa. They're a much older hablo group of Africa. So, you know, we'll show Odebenga in a second, but just keep that in mind. So Stoddard ran in circles with people like Madison Grant, and he had a book out too. Okay. 1916, 1912, 1914, 1916, 1920, and we have not yet got to Margaret Sanger yet. But you can see the fuel is ready for what she's about to do, right? You guys can already see these jokers don't lit the flame. Just going back to
remember, she's a student at the time, and these are the teachers.
Yes, absolutely. Lauder Stoddard, author of the Rising Tide of Color Against YT World Supremacy, a popular proponent of racial hierarchy and negative eugenics. So we talk again, when you mention YT supremacy, you automatically by default are saying black inferiority, which, as you see, all this crap was made up. It was
Why
made
do you
up.
think in colleges they're the one that created the concept of black power? Because as long as you keep saying black power, that means there's white power. Remember, all things are balanced.
Opposite but equal reaction. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what's going on, family. So this is Lauder Stoddard. Look him up. This is what he believed in. This is what he taught. This is what he propagated. And everybody I'm showing you was around the same time. To the left on my screen, you will see The Passing of a Great Race. That's Horace Grant and The Rise of a Colored Tide. Both books were in circulation, by way which in that same time period, they had showed this movie at the White House. Let me show you. They were just compiling shit on our ass, boy. They were they should make us look real bad. What was the name of the movie that showed at the White House in that
Birth
time?
of a Nation. The Birth of a Nation. But you have to remember, at this time, who's reading these books? Who's getting this literature? This is the program of the so-called top elite. This is the separation of people. This is how you get people thinking, I'm better than you. You're beneath me. Remember what they told you, selective breeding. See, when people hear breeding, what are they breeding? Not physical bodies, new minds.
Oh, bro, you teaching now. What are you teaching?
Remember, they changed the old way of thinking, of working for family, community, taking care of each other. Created these new schools and gave you a new ideology. Remember when they told you they stripped you of your culture, your race, your ideas? This happened in the 1900s. The school system is how they did it. The school made everybody see the world the same way.
No, that's big facts. Big facts. And the way that they perpetuate slavery also does the same thing. So on top of what he's saying, if they can keep showing you sketches of slave ships and keep feeding you a narrative that you were a desolate, poor people who didn't have nothing, nobody wanted you, nobody wanted to deal with you, etc., etc. If they can keep showing you this over and over, they can keep showing you Roots, which the first time, I think, 1977, bro, for Roots, which was the first time we've ever seen us on TV and chains and anything like we've never seen it. Like they had to construct the notion through Hollywood of these stories that we were in chains and shackles. They never teach you about. Go ahead.
Remember, they sent, and remember who they showed it to? Children. So imagine what it's doing to the psyche and the mind. They're programming you now. They're programming you to where when you go out in society and you get treated a particular way, it's okay. You're going to overcome. It made it, it normalized it. It's no different now that we done seen so many shootings on Facebook, YouTube, the news, that when you see it now, it doesn't even bother you. So now when everyday people seeing something happen to a person of color out in public back then, everybody stayed and watch how people stay and watch now. It's the same thing. The program is just being ran over and over and over. It shows there's a new set of children being born. The program is just being washed, repeat, wash, repeat.
It's almost like they desensitized us to this stuff on purpose, kind of like as a psyops. That's the word, psyops. The word, kind of like psyops. Like they programmed us to think this way, and that's why I cling so hard to the word psychoneurosis, because that's exactly what's happened. Like there's a psychological ill that they have implanted through what the bro just explained, through things of school and schooling and think about this. I'm 42. The same math they taught my mom is the same math they taught me. The same math teaching my son. It's the same program. Like nothing of our curriculum is enhancing. By the time my children are 4 or 5, they should already know how to do basic math. When I mean like multiplication by 5. So by 15,
let's take it deeper.
What's that?
Let's even take it deeper. Why isn't school teaching you the basic necessities to maintain life? Balance a checkbook, taxes, property, ownership, running a business, doing for self. Remember, it's industrial. It's created to make you a slave. We said this the other day that people don't realize. Slavery never went anywhere. It just got taken over by the federal government and the state. The 13th Amendment states illegal slavery or non-voluntary servitude is illegal unless convicted of a crime. So what is that telling you?
That's it.
If you have non-voluntary servitude, that means you have voluntary servitude. That's your 9 to 5. Don't you fill out an application, a contract with this job that you're going to do so much service in advance time, and then somewhere down the line they're going to give you a percentage of what they think that was worth? What's the difference from sharecropping? It's the same thing. They just changed the terminology. They use TV and media to fool your mind. Nothing changed.
Zero. Nada frittata. Nothing. So by the time they show him Birth of a Nation at the White House, General Grant is also there. The president allowed it to happen. They're showing the savage Negro running amok in America. Oh my God. We got to put them down. The same way they did in the 1990s with the new crime bill. They just demonized all of us, like we just all selling dope, and half of us was like Calvin working at McDonald's.
But what came before the crime bill? See, again, listen, this is very good propaganda. Before the crime bill, you got gangster music.
Oh boy, you teaching? Okay. Which they had to. Oh boy, they had to promote gangster rap, because then
how you learn your ABCs? No, let's go there. The father of learning is repetition. You learned your ABCs through music. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The rhythm. So now when you hear these songs over and over to a young mind, sell that dope. Women do this, stand on the pole. What do you think is happening to the young mind? If it can influence us in clubs, what is it doing to the young, unprepared mind?
Come on now.
They don't want us. See, once you get a certain age, you're done for. They done milked you dry already. They on to the children. Why do you think Disney World is as big as it is? They learned how to capture the minds of the children. They don't need you no more. They just need you to have them.
Oh boy. I try to tell y'all, when they capture your imagination, watch this. Because bro here teaching now. I freaking love it. Hold on. Watch this. I'm gonna pull up the word imagination. It reminded me of the Willy Wonka song. N-E-B, imagination. It was just my imagination. Let's learn right quick on some words. I'm not even gonna put in etymology because we wearing out that word etymology, and half of us don't even know how to even apply etymology. So let's not use it. Let's just use the simple term itself, imagination. In the dictionary, I got it broke down for us. This is the Oxford Language Dictionary. You see right here in the beginning. You see the word image. You know what the image is, right? The image is anything they put before you, anything that it can place in your
peripheral view. Mm-hmm.
Television, the phone. I studied one time when I was going to college. I studied our whole class project was to break down a commercial, and it blew my mind. Like I don't have cable now. You know, we got the package on Netflix stuff now. But back when TV was running, we had to count how many times a certain commercial ran, what time of day it was running, and everything we saw in the commercial, the colors, the jingle, the font of the words, they moved, they shimmied. We had to study the demographics of the people in the commercial, whether it was a family, a single guy or single woman, or a couple with no kids or newborn baby, all that shit. And I had a Gaines detergent commercial, and I won't bore you with the details, but just realize that studying how they do commercials, certain commercials show at certain times of the day. So around 5:30, 7 o'clock, they'll show everything that's family orientated, you know, like Eggos and cereals and breakfast things and Marshalls and Target and Walmart, and because they know that demographic is at home, they off work right now. This is all part of the programming. So then when you go to Walmart after seeing the commercial 4 times, after hearing the radio 3 times, you prone to go to Walmart. Once you go into Walmart or Target or any warehouse, because those are just warehouses, they don't have any windows. They might have a skylight if you're lucky, but it's
So
not
you
a
can't
clear.
keep track of time. They
There are
have
no
a particular
clocks
jingle on.
You got those big AC looking units that are pumping out oxygen throughout the store because it's a warehouse. It's oxygen. Then you study the same platform as applied to casinos in Las Vegas. There's no windows, there's no clocks. They pump oxygen because it's a stimulant. You ever know you go in Walmart for one thing and you got 5 things in your hand? You unconsciously, why do I have a broom, a new book, and I came for deodorant? I don't need a broom. I have a broom in my hand.
Because what they learned was how to reprogram the subconscious. This is what they learned. They took away your critical thinking. What school taught you? School didn't teach you how to think. They told you what to think.
School did not teach you how to think. School didn't teach you how to think at all.
No, think about it. You can't question the teacher. They tell you what something is. Think about it. For a particular generation of students, Pluto was a planet. For a particular generation, if you're old enough, you was taught Pluto was a planet.
Those are the facts. Now, I'm gonna make this point and then go back to your point, and then we're gonna move forward. So, in the word imagination, see the word image. Now, once they capture the image, that's the movies, that's the commercial, that's the cartoon, that's the different colors and all that shit. And this is what More Free Us was telling Neo. We usually don't take people out of the matrix at a certain age. Kids are more. That's why when Neo went to the Oracle's house, there was a bunch of kids in there because they're more influential. They can tap in easier or be tapped in easier. Anyway, your imagination is what they capture. The next word you will see in this word, magi. That means magic. I'll show you in a second. That's what a magi or a magician is. He's a magi. Jesus was visited by 3 magi's.
What they tell you in the commercial? The magic of television.
That's why it's tell live. All right. Y'all got it. Let's move on. Now, you said something that's interesting. You said that's why they don't want kids asking questions in school.
Correct.
If you are disruptive in school, in the classroom, at some point in history, you'll be declared a dunce. And this particular dunce right here, you notice that he has to round the board. Who got it? I'm telling you, tell your age. I don't care. You remember you had to round the board 100 times. You would not do something or say something or whatever the case is.
That came from them Persians.
Watch this though. You was writing a spell over and over until it took hold. That was a spell that they was casting upon you, and you had to use proper grammar or grimoire.
But you know how the spell works? See, like I said, once you break it down and you understand it, the spell is repetition. Because you did it so much, it became a part of you. How do you become good at anything? A good craftsman is what? You got to do it over and over and over. You can make your mind is so powerful. You repeat the wrong thing over and over, you will believe it.
So
can't nobody convince you otherwise.
So did a man think of, so shall he be. Now, here's the flip side to what a dunce is. Now, a dunce, let's talk about the man, Duns Scotus, genius, philosopher. See, the dunce always had to wear the cone silica hat and sit in the corner because the dunce would not conform to the spell. This is the history of the dunce. Now, although it's a negative connotation now, but the dunce was always called a whiz kid or a wizard kid. All right, y'all ain't got there yet. Stay with me. So the dunce kid would wear the dunce hat. And do you not notice the dunce hat is just like the magi hat or wizard hat? That's the dunce hat. That's the genius who would not conform to the grimoire or the spell. This is called a thing. Watch this.
Why do you think school is the first place you learn failure?
Oh boy.
A, B, C, D, F's. They put everybody together and make you compete against each other and tell you if you do not follow this way, do it exactly like this right here, you are a failure.
Magician hat. Now, you would see a version of the wizard hat. The magician has the top hat. And this top hat, as you see it here, has a brim around it. Moorish fez with a brim around it is the hat of the magician, of the one with the knowledge. Or, watch this, 3 magi's came to see Jesus. The 3 magi's or magicians. Now, these 3 magi's or magicians, they wore hats with no brim that were fezzes. They end up becoming a group of individuals who love to look out for the children of the Ali child. They're called Shriners. And the Shriners are their noblemen, or their wise men who came to see Jesus. Now, see, I'm on some other shit telling y'all something about the hat. He don't say it, dunce, and I knew that a dunce is really the smart guy in the classroom. The dunce has on his thinking cap all the time, and the dunce won't conform. Etymology of grammar. The dunce will not conform to the grimoire. The grimoire is a magical incantation, just like what a spell is.
Oh, you mean if you say how they tell you in English, grammar? Oh, my bad.
Right. You have incorrect grammar. You have incorrect spelling. They want you to continue to speak the spell. If you think what we're saying right now is a crock of whatever, do your own research.
But that's why they gave you TV and showed you magic to be something else. So when you do it every day, you don't realize it. The magic is you're repeating things that hurt yourself so much it becomes a part of you unwillingly, and you do it.
Damn. And linguistic grammar is a set of rules on how to follow natural language. Your language was taken away from you. You know, them slaves and them Indians couldn't read or write. They couldn't read that because we don't know what that is. Y'all just got here with y'all new language called, and then it's the King English. So it's in like a super cursive script at that time when they came over here with those treaties, which were really charters or land grants that we didn't know what the hell they were saying. In linguistic, grammar is a set of rules for how a natural language is structured, as demonstrated by its speaker or writer. That's what the grammar is. Then you have spelling. Then you have parts of speech. Then you have definitions. The definitions can change from time to time depending on what's going on in history, but the etymology will never change. That's the root. That's the
all the context in which the word is used will also change the definition.
Right. Which, to bring it back to our main topic of the lecture, to bring it back to this real quick, what is a exonym?
Here's the definition of acronym. An abbreviation formed from the initial letters of other words and pronounced as a word, e.g. ASCII, NASA.
Acronym is good too, but let's look up a exonym. An exonym is an established non-native name for a group of people, individual person, geographical place, language, or dialect, meaning that it is used primarily outside of a particular place inhabited by a group of linguistic community. This is an exonym. Pay attention to this right here, what an endonym is. An endonym is common. Did we lose, bro? Hold on, family. So an endonym is a common native name for a group of people, individual person, geographical place, language, or dialect, meaning that it is used inside a particular group or linguistic community to identify or designate themselves, their place of origin, or their language. So the endonym, Choctaw, Chickamauga, Yamacraw, Yamasee, Wampanoag, Blackfoot, Crow Creek, Wichita, whatever we say we are, that's what we are. That's the endonym. Now here's the exonym. The exonym is established by non-native people who ain't from here, giving you a name. Let's call it exonym, which is a name given to a people by another group of people. Y'all got that? And autonym is something which is self-identification. All right. So let's make sure we're learning this stuff, because you keep mentioning how the school was programmed, and it is a program. But take time to study the language. Endonym, exonym. Now let's move back to our PowerPoint, because that was Madison Grant, Lothar Stoddard, the rising tide of a color, the past of a great race. Remember, at this time, there's also showing the movie at the White House. We just got into a little bit of it right then. 1915, the display of Otibanga at the Brooklyn Zoo. 1918, thereof, a young man by the name of, no disrespect, Timothy Drew was in New Jersey at the O Canaanite Temple. Harlem Renaissance happening in Harlem. 23, 25. I think Josephine Baker Goes to Paris. International. African-American sister of color. international now. Also, in the 1920s, you have what's called the Second Great Migration. This is the migration of Negroes. I love to talk about between the 1920s and 1960, which is the Third Great Migration. This is the aspect that caused everybody in Chicago, grandma, to be from down south. Detroit, Ohio, all y'all people from down south because of the Second Great Migration, 1920. Fight me on it. I bet you everybody in the comments from Chicago, grandma, your people from Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, somewhere down here. Guarantee you they are, because they all migrated in 1920. So this is the 1920s. This book is out. That book is out. Negroes are still being lynched in Mississippi. 1920 was also, we can take a look at Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We can also take a look at Mounds Bayou that was founded by Mr. T. Montgomery, person of color. You can look at North Carolina. Weeksville, New York, aka Bedford-Stuyvesant, is an all-Black community at this point. So the point I'm making is, in this time frame, we have a lot happening in the country. While we have these two pieces of literatures that are in the market about us, the Harlem Renaissance just happened. World War I is happening too, by the way. A German submarine just sank the Lusitania. We're in World War I now. WW1 happens. Also, the Great Depression happens. Simultaneously, you have Wall Street, Black Wall Street happening. Simultaneously, you have your second senator of Mississippi, after Hiram Revels is in office, by the way, another free person of color who was the first Black senator of Mississippi. You have North and South Carolina who just getting settled back with YT, a YT governing body, because it was Black governed rule from 1964 to 67, I think. I'm sorry, 1864 or 67. Black rule. So you can see a lot happening. The Reconstruction era is just now writing the last chapters of the Civil War and what happened thereafter. The antebellum South is just now agreeing on, like, all right, what's going to be our story? We can't tell them that. We can't tell them.
Remember, that's the daughters. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the daughters of the Revolution that did that. The daughters and the sons of the revolutions. That's why I tell people we have to be very careful when we read books and do history. We have to check the sources, and even on top of that, we have to find out the context and what these people were doing. Because a lot of the history that you come across was rewritten and recreated. It's not real. You have organizations that recreated this history at the top of the 1900s.
I'm about to share it up there. I'm about to put them right there anyway. We're talking about it because this builds more of the temperature that I was telling you about. We gotta, when we look at history, we gotta look at it at its entirety, like what was happening on the world stage. You know what I'm saying? What was happening everywhere. 1887, the Daughters of the American Revolution formed its first overseas chapter, Olaho chapter in Honolulu, Hawaii. The chapter's members were mostly descent of the missionaries who had settled in the islands. Chapters were later established around the world, including Shanghai, China, London, Paris, Havana, Cuba, Manano, Mexico, Alaska, Berlin, and Rome. The Daughters of the American Revolution. And you saying that they were significant with helping to reconstruct the history of the South? Or they just kind of played their part?
This is the story of the Civil War from. This is who gave you the Civil War story. This is why when you go and you actually read in records and stuff, it doesn't match with school and what they tell you. You have the Sons of the Revolution. Yeah, you have organizations that were formed and they rewrote the history.
Damn.
Woodrow Wilson was part of the rewriting of a lot of the history books. President Woodrow Wilson.
Watch this. President Woodrow Wilson. 28th, 1913 to 1920. I want y'all to pay attention to these time frames. Please look at these time frames. Right. Brother got the good point right here. Realize with your real eyes. You have to, y'all. It's important. Woodrow Wilson. A lot of y'all don't know who he is. You probably heard of him, probably didn't. As I mentioned before, this is the same time frame. Woodrow Wilson doing this thing. Marcus Garvey's here in America, in New York.
Yeah, like Chad Jeep said, when he was at Princeton, he rewrote the history books. He wrote his own history at Princeton.
His
you
story.
Can put in
his story. He wrote his story. It was the best historical and political books were published before he entered his office political in 1911 as governor of New Jersey. Damn, bro.
Like I said, it's there. That's why I say again, when we do research, we have to be very careful because a lot of the information that you'll come across is falsified information. So you have to take it you have to find out where did they get it from. Just because it's written in the book in the 1800s, no, you have to go further to find out where did he get that concept from? Who taught him?
Damn. Oh, that's facts, bro. That's facts. It's facts on facts. All right, let's keep moving. We're almost there. Madison Grant. Talked about Madison Grant as well. Again, he published another book alongside Lot of Stoddard. Madison Grant was the one who had the brother Oda Banga in 1912 in the Brooklyn Zoo. Okay, was an American lawyer, zoologist. Look at the titles: zoologist, anthropologist, and writer known for his work in conservatism, eugenics, and an advocate for scientific racism. You're going to continue to see that word because that was a real thing. Scientific racism was a thing. It was a study of race and race relation. It was what it was. Grant is less noted for his far-reaching achievement in conservative conservation than pseudo-science advocating of. He's another Nordic, a form of racism which views the Nordic race as superior. There's that beginning stage of that YT superiority I keep talking about. YT supremacy. This is it had to be thought of. It was birth. It wasn't even a thing. Like they had to create it out of thin air through false science, through pseudo-science, through false science. They created a notion, idea. Ooh, we're the perfect race of people. When nobody, oh my God. That's why in the Nation of Islam in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, through Malcolm's age, they kept drilling in your head. And those who went through the nation, those who went through the 5% nation, those who are affiliated with the nation, those who even know the information about the nation, can answer this next question. Who is the original man? According to them, according to the teachings of Master Farad Muhammad, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the original man? Put it in the chat. Just put the answer in the chat. When you put the answer in the chat, understanding what they were trying to do at that time period, by teaching you that you are the original man, they were trying to teach a counter science of what was brewing already. This is pseudoscience. And the ascended master teachers knew that they had to be a counter teaching. There had to be a counter teaching. So this is why in the 1920s, 1913, 15, 16, 17, 20, 25, 23, this is why you get Noble Jew Ali. This is why you get Marcus Messiah Garvey. This is why you get Farad Muhammad. This is why you get these teachings to counter this scientific race, because they come in with some whole nother crock of crap. So you had to be persuaded by hook or crook to think that, to know that, hey, brother, you are the original man, the owner, the maker, and the cream of the earth, which it's validating what was said in Genesis chapter 2:16. That's who you are. And as far as our women, this is what I was told by Elder. This is what I told by Elder. It said the black man came with the planet, the woman came with the man. Who taught you anything different? Like, damn, it makes sense. Nobody. Why don't you believe that? Why don't you believe that? We came with the planet. You know how you get a new car and the seats come with the car. You are an authentic piece of the manufactured goods. Like you're fastened to the chassis of the car. Like you're part of it. There had to be a teaching in 1920. Marcus Messiah Garvey had to tell those Negroes, "Rise, you mighty race of people," he said. Noble Drew Ali had to get on the milk crate in Newark, New Jersey and scream out to our ancestors, "You're not Negro, you're not black, you're not colored. Those are all labels given to you by slaveholders." This is what Prophet said in New Jersey on the corner. Master Farad Muhammad had to teach how he had to teach. Honorable Elijah Muhammad was just talking about the YT man was the devil. The YT man was a devil, according to how he grew up in Georgia. He saw people get lynched, murdered for no reason. And the devil is a devaluer. He's a devaluer. That's what a devil is. So it had to be a teaching when these jokers right here were teaching that pseudo-science, scientific racism, the Nordic race is the perfect race, and got you believing in YT supremacy, and you don't even know that you're admitting to black inferiority by saying YT supremacy. That's the psychoneurosis of the whole plot. It's a psychotic state. That's why they have you talking about the don'ts and thinking the don'ts is the fool, when the don'ts is really the one, the don'ts is really the one kicking the knowledge in the classroom. The teacher can't stand the don'ts talking to. Get your ass in the corner. You talking too much. You won't conform to what I'm teaching you. Hard-headed. No, he has his thinking cap on his head. He's thinking on all faculties. When them kids be telling y'all, listen to your kids sometime. Listen to your kids, man. Now, sometimes they be BSing, but a lot of time you got to listen to your kids and check into it, right? That's social engineering. Thank you, chat. Social engineering. That's what Brother Bones just said earlier with the schools. Now, we can come back on this live another day and really talk about those school systems, how they got started. We can talk about the Carnegies and Rockefellers, what Rockefeller said. He was breeding a working class of people. That's why, don't y'all remember, a lot of y'all old heads over the age of 30 in here, don't y'all remember in high school, we had wood shop and auto mechanics and plumbing, and you had college in high school. You can leave high school, never go to college, and get a job in plumbing or auto mechanics or auto body, whatever you had in your high school. They was teaching you the vocational track. Now, the HBCUs took it and turned into what was called A&Ms, agriculture and mechanics schools. That's why you got Texas A&M, so on and so forth, right? And then the other HBCUs, which is agriculture schools. If you look at their logos, like Hampton University, you see a mule and a man with a tilt behind a mule, and you see like shifts of wheat. You see agriculture somewhere in the symbolism, because those are all agriculture schools teaching people how to be workers. 1920 also had what was called the age of industrialism. Europe had the industrial age already. Now Europe begins to influence North America to go into what's called industrial age, factories and manufacturers. That's why most of the manufacturers are up north, and the Union and all of the agriculture's down south. It's still that way to this day. You know what I'm saying? Detroit is Detroit for a reason. They could have did it in Atlanta, but they did it in Detroit because that's where they were more, progressive group of people in the North when it came to going to industrialism. The South in the antebellum period was more conservative. They didn't want to bring machines, and it was bad enough they had the scallywags and the carpetbaggers down here already dealing with them. Those were Northerners who moved to the South, by the way. But this is all happening in the same time frame of the 1920s, late 1800s. All this stuff is happening. Simon, you got people who are going back to colonies in Africa at this time. What was it called? I forgot the society. They had a society. This is pre-Marcus Garvey.
Oh, the American Colonization Society.
The American Colonization Society.
The American Colonization Society. Yeah.
Yeah, them. My bad, TikTok. But yet, the American Colonization Society was shipping people back to Africa. Those who wanted to go back to Africa for whatever reason, they thought Some of them from Africa. Let's be clear. Let's just stop playing that game. Okay, I don't care. I'm on TikTok. Let's stop playing that game. They from Africa. Okay, the people who went back are from there. Not everybody, but some who went back are from Africa. They got a chance to go back to the motherland. That was cool. To Liberia, yeah. They were colonizing Liberia. So Liberia was what Jamestown was in 1616 over here. That's all they was doing over there. They was recolonizing it with people they've educated here already to go over there and begin to be supplanters over there. That's what.
And that's why the war broke out. That's why the part they don't tell you, even to this day, a lot of them people, the descendants of them people that went there, are U.S. citizens fighting to come back now.
Really?
Yes, they were U.S. citizens sent over to colonize it. The capital of it was Monrovia, named after the president, James Monroe.
Yeah, that's facts. No, that is absolute fact. That's absolute fact. So the point I make, fam, is this right here. All that stuff was happening in the late 1800s, early 1900s, which sets up what you see is happening in the 60s and in the 50s. Okay, bro. This sets that up. Everything we're talking about right now in the 1880s, 1900s, this sets up racial conversation. This sets up civil rights. This sets up what we see later. I was telling this earlier about this guy here, about this young brother right here. Otabanga, he was from the Congo. If I can go back. This man right here, Medicine Grant, Brooklyn Zoo. He was a zoologist. His family had owned that zoo for some time, but he placed this young man right here in captivity inside that zoo. So I can pull up over real quick. And as I said a little bit earlier, Otabanga later would go on to unalive himself. Just battling depression and the atrocities of how they tried to animalize our people, man. You know what I'm saying? Let me share the screen real quick. And this is a bunch of pseudo-scientists, anthropologists. And ladies, just wait till I get to the part which I'll show you about the father of gynecology. It's going to blow your mind. O.T. Bangham, this is him right here. So he's basically put on display at the Brooklyn Zoo. It's featured in the exhibit, 1904 Louisiana Purchase exhibit, St. Louis, Missouri, at the Human Zoo. So he was in the Human Zoo exhibit. This is back when traveling, like traveling with the circus. A lot of those YT undesirable looking children and people traveled with the circus. You know, like the bearded lady and the two-headed sisters, and that came out of that polemic of eugenics. I'm not saying eugenics caused them to mutate, but they were the undesirable people of the neighborhoods and communities. Oftentimes joined the circus and traveled with the circus. Banga had been purchased from native African slave traders by explorer Samuel Phillips Verner, a businessman searching for African people to exhibit, who took him where? The Bronx Zoo. Banga was allowed to walk the grounds before and after the exhibited in the zoo's monkey house. Banga was placed in the cage with orangutans. Regarding it's just hard to read, man. It's crazy. Banga was placed in a cage with orangutan, regarded both as an offense to his humanity and promoted social Darwinism. You see how they literally took us, a brother, and put him inside of a cage beside an orangutan to promote social Darwinism, We just talked about social Darwinism a little bit earlier. To promote Darwinism, they would put him inside of a cage. So anytime you see that chart of evolution, distance yourself from thinking that has anything to do with you. Distance yourself from thinking that that chart of evolution has anything to do with you. This is them. This is part of social Darwinism. This is part of the survival of the fittest. This is part of their taxonomist, Carl Linnaeus. This is part of some crap that they came up with called pseudoscience. To enhance primitive image, presumably protect himself, if need be, from the apes, he was given a fictional bow and arrow. He used this instead to shoot at visitors who mocked him, and partially as a result of this exhibit was ended. Except for briefly visits to Africa. Vernon closed a St. Louis fair, being to live in the United States, mostly in Virginia for the rest of his life. Yeah. So, but he ended up unaliving himself. Oda Benga. But this is part of them pushing that agenda, man. And he was from the Pygmies. The Pygmies are part of the original people, or let me say original haplogroup of Africa, the Pygmies and the Twas. The role of Coal Harbor Springs Eugenics. Coal Harbor Springs, founded in 1890 as a biological laboratory, quickly became a center of eugenics research under Charles Davenport in 1910. Research focus on hereditary human traits, advocating for sterilization of unfit populations. Key figures including biologists, sociologists, contributed to creating a racial hierarchy based on pseudoscientific data. That means it was just a whole bunch of nothing. Biologists and sociologists, professions in that discipline, begin to validate this crazy thinking. What bro was talking about earlier, ERO, the Eugenics Record Office, the Carnegie Institute. Man, I'll tell you something. The Carnegie and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, boy, they mischief making. The Carnegie Institute of Washington engaged in research of biology from 1904 using it's cut off. I guess tract of land, about 9 acres leased for 50 years from the Waxahachie Society in Coal Harbor Springs, New York, with Charles Davenport as a director. A laboratory was built and station opened in June of 1904. It was named Station for Experimental Evolution, SEE, in 1906. And in 1910, with funding from Miss H, that's that lady I showed earlier, the older white lady I showed earlier, from Miss E.H. Harriman, about 80 acres for the Institute. And the Eugenics Record Office would be established there also. So the Eugenics Record Office, and think about Walter Plecker down in Virginia with the Integrity Acts. It's around the same time. That's all. So let's do a quick recap. What is happening in America at the dawn of the 20th century? The 1900s, what is happening so far? There's a new ideology around religion called the Third Great Awakening happening. Let's pull this up real quick so we can thumb through the receipts as I'm making my point. And I'm not reading the notes, by the way. I just want to pull up some receipts. Pardon me. Share screen. Boom, boom. So again, 20th century, 1900s, we got the Third Great Awakening happening, which is one of the most profoundest shift. 1830 to 1930 shift emphasis on personal and social social experiments, social behavior, social religion, socialism, socialist. Social sin, rising belief that poverty is not personal failure, the wages of sin, but the socialist failure that can be addressed by the state. Shift to more secular interpretations of the Bible and creed. This is called the Third Great Awakening, 1890 to 1930. Out of this time frame, you damn sure get Marcus Garvey and Noble Jew Ali and Farad Muhammad. And I named them three particularly because they were the plight of the so-called Negro race at that time. This is before Malcolm. This is before Martin. This is Noble Jew Ali and in the 20s. Marcus Garvey, that was W.B. Du Bois. I mean, you still had Booker T. Washington here. Yeah, George Washington Carver was a little bit older, but that was it. That was all the black greats of that time frame of worth mentioning. That social influencers, you talking about social influencers in the 1900s? Noble Drew Ali. You talk about social influencers in the 1920s? What? 1928. Look at all the people on that front step porch right there. Thousands upon thousands of so-called Negroes together under one ideology, divine creed, including the Canaanite temple. I'm gonna show you the old Canaanite temple in Newark, New Jersey. Noble Drew Ali, or Timothy Drew, was an American religious leader. Third Great Awakening. Earlier, I showed you Father Divine, Sweet Dead of Grace, Third Great Awakening. Here's another religious leader. Noble Drew Ali, possibly born Timothy Drew or Thomas Drew, was an American religious leader who in the early 20th century founded a series of organizations that he ultimately placed under the umbrella title, the Moorish Science Temple of America, including the Canaanite Temple 1913 to 1916. Remember, 1912, they were showing the movie in the White House, and Margaret Sanger had a pamphlet out, and Cold Harbor Springs, New York, just starting a laboratory. And yeah, just keep all that in mind. All right, just keep all that in mind. Prior to this, it was Old Canaanite Temple. Go to images. I think it was in New York. Big religious movement. Marcus Garvey. Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Community League. He was in America in the 1920s. 1914, 1916. Sorry, 1960. Well, he was here in the 1920s. 1916, he moved to the United States and established a UNE branch in New York in Harlem. Marcus Garvey's in Harlem in 1916. Meanwhile, Cold Harbor Springs, New York, they got this laboratory popping off. While Marcus Garvey is here, this is here. This is happening while Marcus Garvey is here. This is happening with these babies. Talk about in a second, with these orphanages and these orphan trains, and not just YT children. Don't get it twisted. You hear the word orphan train. The orphan train was predominantly shipping the YT children out west. But let's talk about these black orphan asylums. They were called asylums. An asylum does mean a safe haven, but that sounds creepy. An asylum. Let's talk about how they work these little black children, orphans, as indentured servants, putting them back in chattel slavery in this same time frame. Garvey's here. Okay. Farad Muhammad. He's here. All these influencers are here in North America in the same time frame. That's what's happening in America in the dawn of the 20th century. A lot is happening in America in the 20th century. Congress passed a basic. That was my refrigerator talking. That's crazy. Congress passed a Basic Naturalization Act June 29th, 1906. Now, let me remind you of something real quick. Naturalization Act 1790. The Naturalization Act of 1790, the first law to establish uniform rules for naturalizing in the United States. This act limited citizenship to free white people who met the following criteria. The Naturalization Act wasn't for nobody else in 1790 but free white people, and they had to be free because there were also enslaved white people, okay, called indentured servants under contract. So they had to be clear and say free white people. That's what made them naturalized. You don't get to be naturalized because you're nationalized. You're the nationals here. You are the nationals in 1790, so you don't get to be naturalized. They can't nationalize themselves here because they're not from here. See, their nation or their pedigree or their NATO or their tribe is not from here in these lands. See, nation is NATO, and NATO means kin or your tribe. Your tribe is tied to a piece of dirt somewhere on this planet. And your tribe has customs or costumes based on the geographical location. So the YT people of 1790 who were now the more settled colonists, because 1790, they done made it all the way down to the territory of Georgia and Florida. They now took over Georgia and Florida as a colony. They're well underway to being the 13 colonies in 1790. They were yet still to be called true Americans because they were not naturalized. Now, watch this. These are only criteria right here. Lived in the United States or the colonies, because there were no United States in 1790. They were only called the colonies. Lived in the colonies at least for 2 years, were of good character, and you swore allegiance to the Constitution. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Y'all know the words. The act also granted citizenship to children of naturalized citizens under the age of 21 who live in the United States, children born abroad to the United States. The act excluded. Let me zoom in on my TikTok. The act excluded Native Americans, indentured servant, enslaved people, free Africans, Pacific Islanders, and non-YT Asians. The racial restrictions remained in effect until 1952. Okay. The Naturalization Act of 1790 had a significant impact on the country's history in law. The Naturalization Act of 1790 had a significant impact. Now we don't know who the Negroes and who the Indians are. We don't know who the natives are, who the indigenous people are. We don't know who the YT. We don't know nothing no more because the Naturalization Act of 1790 had a significant impact on the country's history and law. It helped explain why more than 99% of Americans were YT or Black as late as 1960. Had no reason for that. It was no reason to label everybody white or Black. They figured that out. And as I told you, Noble Jew Ali said, you're not Black, you're not Negro, you're not colored people. Those were all labels given to you by slaveholders in 17 79 or 76. 79. And those titles lasted for a little while. But I just showed y'all. This is called the Naturalization Act. All right, let's go back to this. The House Committee on Immigration and Naturalization held hearings in 1920s on a variety of topics, including communist and antichrist deportation cases. A subcommittee held hearings from April 21st, 24th, 1920 to discuss the cases. Proposed changes in naturalization laws. The committee held hearings on proposed changes to naturalization laws. That was the Congress passed a basic Naturalization Act on June 29th, 1906. I was just showing y'all. Congress passed same thing. 1920s Congress sought new ways to restrict immigration, in part because the literacy test alone was enough to prevent most potential immigrants from entering. One measure was the introduction was to create immigration quotas, which would limit the number of visas allowed to new immigrants each year. However, President Woodrow Wilson, we just talked about him, President Woodrow Wilson opposed this restrictive act and used a pocket veto to prevent its passing. President Warren Harding called Congress back into special session in early 1921 to pass the law, which was renewed for another 2 years in 1922. Yes. So what was happening in 1920? What was America looking for to happen over here? They done figured out that their birth control rate is super low. They're now figuring out that we need more people. We need more people. Let me put my screen back on here. Let's see here. America's immigration, 1923. You could damn near say any year in the 20s and it'll pop. 1923, United States was dealing with a number of immigration issues. Now, according to all written history, so-called black people are already here. Whether you're Native American or whether you got brought on the ships in the 1800s, 1700s, I'm sorry. So we're not the immigrants. We're the only non-immigrants in America. Let that sink in for a second. We're the only non-immigrants. Can't be deported nowhere. From here, where we gonna go? Right here. Everybody else entered the shores from somewhere else, making them immigrants. Okay. And once they immigrated to the shores of Plymouth, they then migrated out west. Migrate, pilgrimage. You know, they call it pilgrimage in the beginning and they call it migration later. Same difference. Immigration restrictions. In his 1923 State of the Union address, President Warren Harding calling for a policy of restriction to immigrants based on a census of naturalization records. He also called for the immediate restriction of all aliens. It sounds like right now, don't it? Because in 1925, Immigration Service reported 1.4 million immigrants were living in the country illegally, and those were all white people. So it really tickles me to think that Mexicans are crowding out borders when Texas still belongs. You know what? Never mind. Ain't nobody saying anything about these Slavs packed on these Slav ships like sardines. They show you sketches of us packed on slave ships. F1. Sorry. They show us sketches, but they got real pictures of them packed. Like they're packed on each other coming off these Slav ships. Moving along. Eugenics Record Office, Laudrup Stoddard and Langley, who was appointed the expert witness for the House of Committee on Immigrants. Notice how he's now holding these seats. This is the same Laudrup Stoddard that wrote that book earlier, The Rise of a Colored Tide. Same guy. Now he's House Committee for the Eugenics Record Office. Okay. Present argument that these immigrants would pollute the nation's gene pool if their numbers were unconstricted. His concern is these immigrants are going to pollute the nation's gene pool. Genetic annihilation. Genetic annihilation. That's what their biggest concern is in 1920s. The YT people of North America, their biggest concern right now is genetic annihilation. Rest in peace to Frances Cress Welsing. That's what Frances Cress Welsing was teaching. You gotta look her up. Sister Frances Cress Welsing was teaching about genetic annihilation. That these YT people are concerned about genetic annihilation. They are obsessed with genetics. They are obsessed with inferiority. They are obsessed with dominance, conquering, conquest. Hurry up, get rid of it. This is their pedigree. This is not racist rant. This is history. If you go before a judge, he's going to look at your history. So you got 5 robberies and 2 misdemeanors. Like, it's just a history. Like, it's your record. Like, it's just their record. I'm just showing their record. I'm not promoting hate. This is a safe space. I'm just showing their record. Okay. So Laudrup Stoddard concern at this time was that the influx of immigrants who just came in from Ellis Island, they're going to pollute the nation's gene pool. They were obsessed with having a perfect human pedigree. They wanted the perfect human pedigree. This is the 1920s, people. This is not even the 30s. Like, we're going to deal with Nazi Germany in a second, right? But we haven't even got that far into Hitler is not even a thought of running anything yet. And look what America been doing at least for 8 years already, if not longer. Or longer than that with chattel slavery. Look at what they're doing now in the 1920s. 1865, you just got set free. Now look what they're doing 62 years later. About to do to you later. They're now planning exterminating everybody of not a pure race gene. They don't care if you even look like them, they get rid of you. Get out of here. You're gonna dirty the pool up. You heard what he said. And there's many other quotes I could pull up from these cats about how they felt about their race. Government state-sanctioned sterilization. State-sanctioned sterilization between 1907 and 1932. 32 states passed eugenics laws to allow for the sterilization of people deemed unfit to reproduce. These laws were motivated by theories of human hereditary and YT supremacy belief. Federal funding in 1960s and 70s, federal programs funded non-consensual sterilization that affected over 100,000 Black, indigenous people of color. That's what BIPOC means. BIPOC women. 100,000 of them things got sterilized. Indiana enacted the first eugenic sterilization law in 1907, and the U.S. Supreme Court upheld such laws in the 1927 state program targeted institutionalized mentality disabled women. Oh, they were institutionalized. They targeted institutionalized mentally disabled women. Oh, that is crazy. The state program targeted institutionalized mentally disabled women. Beginning in the late 1930s, proponents rationalized involuntary sterilization as protecting vulnerable women from unwanted pregnancies. Doesn't that sound familiar? These are all the states. So the darker states, it says, had the bill pending, and the other states had the laws in effect in 1935. So the states with the with the horizontal line, diagonal lines, like a slash lines, that state had it since 1935. The dark states were just waiting to pass it. And I guess like Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee were, none and void of that situation. But this is 1935, and right next to it, I posted the Racial Integrity Act. The Racial Integrity Act was already happening. This is Plecker, not the map. The map is not Plecker. The map is just eugenic sterilization happening at the same time. Plecker had already scrubbed the records from the Indian blood. One drop law was happening simultaneously as this is happening. These are two things happening at the same time. The Racial Integrity Act is happening or happened with Mr. Plecker, Walter Plecker, and then the map is showing you the eugenics, anesthetizing and sterilizing of people of color, on top of taking you out of the category of supposed Indian. 100,000 people of color, women of color, 100,000. How many babies and heirs and bloodlines were eradicated right there? That's called genocide. That statement right there, 1960. This ain't 1860. This ain't post-Civil Wars, antebellum slavery. None of that. This is your mama was living. Anybody over the age of 30, your mom was born between 1970, 60 and 70. I bet your mama was born because I was born 82. So y'all mama was living. Y'all grandma was alive in the 70s. This is y'all grandma and them. This is their era. This ain't Harriet Tubman era. This ain't Nat Turner era, nigga. This is yesterday. People still got cars from the 70s riding around right now. 1970 Oldsmobile Mustang. There's cars from this era still here. There are people from this era still here. And in that era, over 100,000 women of color was forced sterilized under federal funded programs from government sanctioned states in America. At the time, well, not this time, this is the 60s, let me not lie. But in the 20s, when Indiana was enacting, 1907, Woodrow Wilson was in the seat, okay? Indiana enacted the first eugenic sterilization law in 1907. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld such laws until 1927. So 1907, 1927, and beginning in the late 1930s, it said it sterilized involuntary, go back, my bad. Involuntary sterilized, rationalized, involuntary sterilization was practiced vulnerable women from unwanted pregnancies. So I see 1907 to 1927, that's 20 years. 1930 is 3 years. Until 1960 is 30 more years. 1970, that's 10 more. Good gracious. From 1907 to 1970, this was happening. This is after slavery. All the lynchings you see, that happened after slavery. Okay? I'm not even being funny. There's some slaves who died in the 1700s are looking at people who died later like, damn, that's it? So just look at the time frame. Keep going. There she go. The history of forced sterilization in the United States. This is where Margaret Sanger comes in. See, Margaret Sanger wasn't in the picture yet, but all those people we talked about earlier, Francis Galting and all those jokers we talked about earlier, about to come right back around. Because now they're well established now. That Cold Harbor Springs laboratory they got up there, oh boy, it's Mary Berkshire lead now. It's Margaret Sanger about to get funding going now. So her little flyer she passing out. And her father was a political extremist too. So that's what you get it from. And she got this whole chip on her shoulders from the women's suffrage movement. And the women's suffrage movement, that's when we lost our black women. And they started getting on board, even in the 60s, with those YT women. Had nothing to do with our women. I digress. This is Margaret Sanger. The history of forced sterilization. Remember this joke? We're back a couple slides ago. This is W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois was part of the Black Boule. How should I say? He's from the Black society who didn't really rock with the hood black people. Let me just say that. People in the hood, he didn't rock with them. He stayed. Everybody from Atlanta. Anybody from Atlanta? Anybody in the chat from Atlanta? Not familiar with Atlanta territory? Because I'm in Georgia, right? W.E.B. Du Bois stayed in Roswell, Kennesaw. He didn't deal with Negroes who lived in Decatur or SWATs. Let's put it like that. Let's put it in today's term. W.E.B. Du Bois, if he lived in Atlanta, he'd be living in North Atlanta, gated community. He didn't deal with no Negroes who lived out in Zone 6. He didn't deal with Gucci Man, Walker Flocka. He didn't deal with none of them Atlanta. He stayed to himself. That's up north. Thank you. That's where W.E.B. Du Bois lived at, right? So remember earlier, W.E.B. Du Bois was just arguing. He was in a go back a couple slides. Give me a second. I showed you W.E.B. Du Bois earlier arguing with Lauder Stoddard. There you go, right here. Remember? This is one of the great debates of that century. W.E.B. Du Bois and Lauder Stoddard. Lauder Stoddard was arguing that Negroes don't have what it takes to have a culture, and so we're not smart enough. Blah 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 blah. And W.E.B. Du Bois argues and wins the debate. Now we go a little bit further in history. We're going to see something that's a little bit weird. We're going to see an alliance of thought of W.E.B. Du Bois with Margaret Sanger. Yes, W.E.B. Du Bois supported Margaret Sanger's family planning clinic in Harlem in 1930. Du Bois was an elder statesman of the Black community and endorsed the clinic, which was staffed with Black social workers and Black physicians. Du Bois also wrote an editorial, The Crisis, the NAACP magazine, that argued for birth control as a way to build stable families and support racial progress. He believed that women needed to be able to space out childbearing to maintain their health, care for their children, and contribute to their community. This was his mindset. He supported this nonsense. He supported eugenics. W.E.B. Du Bois. He support this stuff. So, but again, I mean, it's to be expected. W.E.B. Du Bois was part of the Black Boule. So, Sanger's birth control movement did have support in the Black neighborhoods, beginning in the 1920s, in the 20s. When their league in Harlem started by African American, Sanger also worked closely with the NAACP founder W.E.B. Du Bois on the Negro Project, which she viewed as a way to get safer contraceptives to African Americans. Boy, it be your own. It be your own kind sometime. Yeah, he an agent. W.E.B. Du Bois, yeah, he with the he with them folks. He with the other side. So when I saw that cover with Margaret Sanger, I never knew that W.E.B. Du Bois was associated with this. That this was one of his projects. He was associated with the project. He was an associate with the project called the Negro Project, because again, W.E.B. Du Bois didn't really want. He didn't really want the underclass so-called Black people to perpetuate the ideals that these Europeans were putting out in the 20s about us. They were feeble-minded, we're lazy, we're thugs, we're criminals, we're prostitutes. And it was a lot of that going on back then too with our people. But he didn't want that to represent all Black people. So him and some other Negro aristocrats formed what's called the Black Boule. You know, a lot of Masons and AKAs and Eastern Stars and Deltas and graduates of HBCUs are really heavy in the community of Boule. And they are like the gatekeepers for regular folk, regular black folk. A lot of them back in the 60s and to the 70s were representatives of so-called African Americans. That's your Jesse Jacksons and your Al Sharptons. They represented no interest of her people. They was just a plant put up there to make it look like that. Barack Obama is also a part of that situation as well. Oprah Winfrey, all of them, they're not. Think about it. All that black wealth between the NFL contracts, the NBA contracts, the baseball contracts, and entertainment. Think about all those. They don't have to help anybody. First of all, black folks can't look out for look for no handout. But for a hand up though, why haven't they tried to open their own black bank again? Think about it now. All the brothers, all y'all that watch sports, them a lot of contracts out there. They're just contracts walking around. A lot of them. Entertainment. Yeah, I know we got entertainment going. $1 billion industry, entertainment. None of those people have aggregated their funds to open up one black institution, and there's actual neighborhoods for sale. They're like towns for sale throughout America. Y'all know that? They're like a whole town for sale. Like it's abandoned towns just around America. You can buy a whole town. You know what I'm saying? Like you ain't got to go buy no land and try to start from scratch with these tiny homes. Just go buy a whole town and call it Black Town. I don't know. We have our own sheriff, our own police. We have our own grocery stores. And the buildings are already there. Like, just turn the water on, turn the lights on, you get your own town. Why haven't any of these Negroes aggregated their money together to try to open up? I know you can say we tried. Like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I get it. I know. We were doing it before segregation. I get it. But what about now? Because there's way more black millionaires now than it was back then. We had some back then, but there's way more now, is my point. Because of Negro boule gatekeepers, man. We almost done. But it blew my mind to find out that he was arguing the latter with Lothar Stoddard about the inferiority of black people. Now you find him in bed with the same group of people. Maybe he didn't know that she's affiliated with that situation. Maybe he didn't know that. I don't know. But either way, ladies, this is J. Marion Sims. Ladies, please write him down. J. Marion Sims. He's the father of gynecology. He's a tough dude, man. Biological laboratory was established in 1890. He was one of the earliest independent centers for biology research in the United States. In 1904, Charles Benedict Davenport. In 1904, Charles. See how Davenport came back up there quick? 1904, Charles Davenport established the SEE to conduct research in genetic and hereditary. Boy, these people are crazy. J. Marion Sims, the father of gynecology, he was forced out of the hospital he founded because of he insisted on treating cancer patients. He operated without anesthesia on enslaved black women. Oh, he said that black women don't feel pain. That black women are prone to pain, so you don't need any anesthesia. And I won't pull up on the screen, but what he was trying to do was correct. It was called vestigia. That's when your sphincter, your hole, is not aligned with your other hole, ladies. So he was trying to recorrect it. He operated on I think 12 black women. I think 4 died, of course, but he operated on the same 4 or 5 black women over and over, opening them up and closing them up. In fact, y'all know that little pewter spoon. Hold on. Pewter spoon. I'm trying to pull some up on my site. Anyway, the little plastic duck quack things that y'all use at OGBYN. He's responsible for creating that device, but he used a you take the horseshoe off of horse with it. He would stick that nasty thing up in women's private parts, trying to correct it. So that's how gynecology came about. It's from J. Marion Sims, who just a couple of years prior to 1920 was figuring out women's underparts with dirty tools and stuff, with no anesthesia, by the way. So use bleed and cutting and trying to realign your vestigia. And so your vestigia was off track because you were just more what he said, black women just more promiscuous, like you had sex a lot. So that's why it was, and he did it in his backyard. They got him inside of a shed. He did it right in the backyard. And there was other YT men just standing around watching while he just had his way with your private parts with no anesthesia. But yeah, ladies, so next time you go to the OGBYN, just ask your OGBYN clinician about J. Marion Sims and watch how they react and see what they have to say about J. Marion Sims. And it's pretty interesting. Medical experiments on enslaved women and girls. So it was a lot of it going on, man. They would even say that the Negro baby's skull was not aligned. So upon delivering your baby, they would stick this little specimen in the back of the baby's skull to try to realign the baby's skull. Of course, it was 100% mortality rate, and this is according to several sources. What's her name? The sister. She does a beautiful presentation on. I can't call her name right now. Dr. George DeGrew. Dr. George DeGrew does a beautiful lecture on YouTube. Check her out, Dr. George DeGrew, about just the mindset of these people. And this is all happening at the same time. Again, you guys seen the movie Life when they're talking about the Boom Boom Room, and you seen the movie Harlem Nights. Harlem was jumping like Jordan. It's black excellence. Black Wall Street. So Oklahoma is thriving at this time. At the same time, this is happening at the same time in America. Okay. It's just world history. We can't get boxed into one thing. No, what else was happening at the time? It's mind blowing, y'all. Let's talk about how the Nazis got involved. The Nazis studied U.S. eugenics and Jim Crow laws as a model for their policies. When they were criticized, one historian says they pointed to Mississippi. Nazi Germany just pointed to Mississippi, is what they said. They got the blueprint. They got the blueprint from us. This is what Nazi Germany said. We learned from y'all. Like, we got it. We saw how y'all was doing those poor Indians and Negroes over there, and we kind of figured out we could do the same thing over here. In Germany, they call them Rhineland bastards. It's called Black Horror on the Rhine. The Rhineland was a particular territory in Germany at the time, and it was an influx of these looking babies over there because they said the African individual men were sleeping with the German women and producing these undesirables over there. This was along with the juicy people who was all in the population who they didn't like either. TikTok, when I say juicy, I'm talking about, the U's with a J. We can't say that publicly, so I just call them juicies. The juicy people were also getting unalived in Germany also. But these atrocities also happen to a lot of people of color. The point is, Germany got the blueprint from America. Who are the Rhineland bastards? Look them up. It's a real thing. And Germany say, we learned from y'all how to get rid of these people of color. We don't want these people over here in Germany either. Even though Germany gave them, we gave Germany so much, right? Black Horror in the Rhineland was a moral panic aroused from Weimar, Germany, and elsewhere concerning allegations of widespread crime, especially sexual crime committed by Senegalese and other African soldiers. They're so concerned about genetic survival. The sexual crimes is, rape and stuff like that, which is the same thing they showed at the White House at the Birth of a Nation. This white guy, YT man in blackface, trying to, push upon a YT lady, symbolizing that we were all brutes and just horrible people and just, take people's personal stuff, and we don't do that. The term Black Horror or Rhine, coined by E.D. Morrill as most used English-speaking world, children of mixed parentage were known as Rhineland bastards. Ernest Rudin, please write him down. This is how Nazi Germany gets its blueprint from America when it came to the American eugenics. Ernest Rudin was a director of the foremost German eugenics research institute, the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Genealogy. That's in Germany. He's an important figure. Write him down, please. Take notes. This is a court case I came across. Leaders in eugenics movement held prominent position at Harvard, Stanford, and Yale, among other schools. And eugenics was taught at 376 universities and college, 60 years after the passing of the 1866 Civil Rights Act. It embodied the 42 USC, 42 United States Code, 1981. Eugenics along racial lines was encouraged by some of our nation's leading academics, many of whom believed YT were to be intellectually superior to blacks. They believed a rising black birth rate would participate what eugenics Lothrop Stoddard termed crisis of the age. Tragically, these eugenics inherited discrimination ideals will still be with us today. It's 42 U.S. Code. So again, it was just a panic of YT people feeling like they were going to be replaced, which I already showed you that they are gradually fading out. They're phasing off the planet. So they had a right to be, a little bit panicky. It's come to full fruition though. Paul Bowman, this is an interesting guy right here. We kind of going to our last couple slides now. Paul Bowman was an American marriage counselor, eugenics, agriculture explorer. He was an influential advocate of the compulsory sterilization. And the compulsory sterilization crap is crazy. Of the mentally ill people and people with mental disabilities. That don't mean you had to be, like disabled. They could just declare you feeble-minded because you couldn't read or write. And you would be under this compulsory sterilization situation. And the father of marriage counseling in the United States, compulsory sterilization, also known as forced coerced sterilization, refers to any government mandate program to involuntarily sterilize in a specific group of people. Sterilization removes a person's capability to reproduce, and it usually is done by surgical or chemical pharmaceuticals. It's usually done that way. It's called compulsory sterilization. Yep, that's Plan B. That's all that stuff. That's sterilization. You're sterilizing your womb, ladies. Your body, your choice. Just giving you the history behind it. In 1907, the state passed explicit eugenics laws to allow for the government to sterilize the insane, the feeble-minded, the dependent, and disease of all who deem incapable of making their own decisions about reproduction. And this is a case right here. These two sisters were forced sterilized unwillingly, unknowingly in the hospital, and their story is now resurfacing or has resurfaced, and they're shining some light on it. The actual link to this story, again, everything in this PowerPoint has a hyperlink. Again, shoot me a quick donation to the Cash App. Put PowerPoint in your email, and I will email you this entire PowerPoint. The PowerPoint does have hyperlinks. I want to emphasize that again. I just want to show you. So you guys think I'm pulling your coattail. And I think share my other screen. What's cool about the hyperlinks, anything in the PowerPoint that you want, more explanation on, or you want to read the entire article, then you know what I'm saying? Like that's I'm setting you up for the research. Oh, I'm tripping. I'm setting you up for the research part. That's what I'm trying to say. Let me share my screen real quick. Hold on. There it is. So let me go to slideshow. Let me see. This is the PowerPoint in its entirety. Again, the hyperlinks are included in the PowerPoint. So if you get to one of the pieces of the PowerPoint and you want to click on something to get preferred, let me show you real quick. I got them a couple of them, I think. Let's see what I would have it on. Put it on this one. Oh shit! Hold on. Give me a second. I want to show y'all all the hyperlinks that are connected to this shit. This is one right here. It's on there. Oh, hold on. I thought I was sharing the screen. There we go. So this is one of the hyperlinks right here on the PowerPoint. And this hyperlink right here takes you through the whole timeline. But again, this is a part of the actual PowerPoint. So this goes more into detail about everything I was talking about. Eugenics' origin development. And you just click the timeline. Post-war period. And that's if you're interested and even get in the PowerPoint. Cash App at the bottom. Cash App, put your email in the joint. And I got you, man. But until next time, y'all, I appreciate y'all for rocking with me the whole entire time. This is crazy, right? Information, man. The more you know, the more you know. Over on TikTok, thank y'all for rocking with me too. I appreciate y'all. All my TikTokers been rocking and locking in with me the whole time. I appreciate y'all. Share this live. If you're on TikTok, share this live. Please share this live. Everybody else, peace and light, peace and love. I appreciate y'all, man. 100 grand. Peace and love, TikTok. Let me close out TikTok first. Boom. So I have my phone propped up recording this on TikTok. Pretty dope. Trying to reach that. I think I just reached my 4,000 mark over there. You know what I'm saying? I need y'all to share this too. You guys are sharing. Please share this. Share this live. Thank y'all for tapping in with your boy, man. Mr. Information. Until next time. Peace.